Chapter 3021. The enemy was too cunning. 5. In an instant, the entire Alliance star system had a major change. The powerful families lost everything overnight and were now in debt. Although the ordinary people didn't know what had happened, even the dumbest person knew that these families had offended some big shot. Now that the big shot was angry, the powerful families were all back to square one without exception. As a result, the Alliance star system was surprisingly harmonious. However, Lung Ruox's actions had caused several advanced civilizations' star fields to fall into the state of an elementary civilization's star field. Some of them were even worse than an elementary civilization's star field. Ji Kai, who was originally from a star field with an elementary civilization, only felt his hatred being vented. It was all because those guys from the advanced civilizations had their eyes on top of their heads. Now they were on the same level. Lung Ruoxue didn't say anything about Ji Kai's gloating. At this moment, they were guests in the Muyuan galaxy. Due to Lung Ruoxue and the demon's interference, the Muyuan royal family could be said to be the only outstanding one in the entire star field. Of course, this was also the result of the Muyuan royal family's timely surrender. The Muyuan emperor was quite glad about this, but he did not know what instructions the three of them had for him. With caution, Emperor Muyuan treated Lung Ruoxue and the other two as honored guests and tried to find out the purpose of their visit. Although he was more than happy to be able to hug the thighs of these two gods, he was also a little afraid at the same time. Such a tangled mood made him quite troubled. On the other hand, Chao Meng was very casual when interacting with Lung Ruoxue and the other two. Every time Emperor Muyuan saw her, he would break out in cold sweat and be frightened. In reality, Lung Ruoxue and the other two did come here for a small matter. After sweeping through so many families, she had a lot of useless trash in her hands that she wanted to sell. Hence, she thought of the Emperor of Muyuan, this trash can. However, every time she saw the Emperor of Muyuan being anxious and angry but not daring to ask directly, her evil interest would take effect. After staying in Muyuan Palace for a few days, she finally revealed her purpose before Lung Ruoxue and the rest decided to leave. Upon hearing that he wanted to sell something to him, Emperor Muyuan immediately agreed, and at the same time, his heart was greatly relieved. However, when he saw the trash that Lung Ruoxue had taken out, he was depressed. The items that Lung Ruoxue wanted to sell to him were all priceless treasures. However, he believed that these items would not be of any use to the other party. Furthermore, the clans that these items once belonged to were now in name only and were in huge debt. After keeping all these dirty things, Emperor Muyuan was not afraid that those families would come for revenge, because they would never have the chance. Not long after the flying ship left the Muyuan galaxy, Lung Ruoxue discovered a stowaway in a corner of the cabin. Lung Ruoxue was speechless as she looked at Chao Meng, who was smiling at her in an attempt to please her. A princess? What was he trying to do? Although she wasn't afraid that Emperor Muyuan would blame her for kidnapping the princess, she couldn't bring this unnecessary princess. After all, they probably wouldn't return to this place in the future. Don't send me back. Seeing that she had been discovered, Chao Meng did not wait for Lung Ruoxue to speak and immediately made the first move. Can you give me a reason? Lung Ruoxue explained patiently. She had a good impression of this little girl and was willing to listen to her explanation. A life is at stake. If you send me back, I won't be able to keep my life. So, please do me a favor and take me with you. Chao Meng said pitifully. You are the princess of the Muyuan galaxy. Who would dare to take your life? Hearing this, Lung Ruoxue's curiosity was piqued. Thanks, when did this happen? Lung Ruoxue asked nosily. Last night. Chao Meng told him the truth. You're a princess, and he dares to hunt you down? Lung Ruoxue asked with a smile. I dare. Other than the emperor, he doesn't care about anyone else. Chao Meng said, feeling wronged. I see. Lung Ruoxue nodded. When Chao Meng saw this, she immediately seized the opportunity and said, Take me away. All right? Not good. Princess Chao Meng, Lung Ruoxue rejected. You didn't tell me the truth, right? I've already said it. Chao Meng felt even more aggrieved. Then why did that man want to kill you? Logically speaking, even if you forced yourself on him, the one who took advantage of you should be the man, right? It's possible that he's angry, but it's not to the extent that he's hunting you down, right? Lung Ruoxue asked in confusion. I don't know. I only told him that I would take responsibility and ask him to marry me. He said that he would hunt me down, so I ran away in fear. Chao Meng was so depressed that she didn't know what to say. After hearing what she had to say, Lung Ruoxue couldn't help but burst out laughing. No wonder. She had finally found the crux of the problem. It was fine if he took advantage of others, but he was a man. It wasn't a big loss, but she took advantage of him and wanted him to marry her. It was no wonder that the man would be angry. What are you laughing at? Seeing Lung Ruoxue's smile, Chao Meng was even more depressed. You look quite smart. Why are you so stupid after taking advantage of me? Lung Ruoxue was speechless. What do you mean? Chao Meng didn't understand, and her IQ plummeted. It's already depressing for a man to be taken advantage of by a woman, and you still want him to marry you. It's no wonder he's angry. Lung Ruoxue explained. So what? If I can marry you, why can't he? The evildoer who had been listening by the side and had no intention of interrupting grumbled when he heard Xue Er's words. In his heart, he deeply felt that it didn't matter whether a man married a woman or a woman married a man. As long as the two of them liked each other, what did it matter who married who? It's not like he'll lose a piece of meat. So, when he heard his wife's words, he wanted to refute her. It was really nothing to marry a woman. He was the best example. Hearing the demon's words, Lung Ruoxue immediately shut her mouth. How could she have forgotten that she was the one who proposed to him? The evildoer was married to her. Chao Meng could not help but open her mouth wide. She did not dare to speak for a long time. Did this mean that she had heard another big secret? Would she be killed to keep it a secret? So, Mommy help. At this moment, Ji Kai suddenly walked out of the captain's room. When he saw Chao Meng, he was shocked at first. Then he said, Master, Madam, we've been surrounded by the starships of Muyuan Starfield. At first, he was still curious about what the starships of Muyuan Starfield were up to. But after seeing Chao Meng, he understood. Let's go out and take a look. After Lung Ruoxue finished speaking, she took the lead and walked out of the cabin. As soon as she went out, she saw a young man standing on the starship. The man was in his 20s. He had a strong and stylish look. He was tall and wore a dark green commander's uniform. At this moment, the man's lips were tightly pursed, and his sharp eyes were fixed on the cabin door behind Lung Ruoxue. Chapter 30:22. The enemy was too cunning. 6. I want to find someone. Afraid that the other party would misunderstand, the man spoke first. Chao Meng. Lung Ruoxue understood. The man nodded. He knew that Chao Meng must be on the other party's spaceship. No problem, he said. Lung Ruoxue turned around and returned to the cabin. After a while, she came back with an extremely unwilling Chao Meng. She threw Chao Meng to the man and irresponsibly pulled the demon back into the cabin. Outside the spaceship, Chao Meng struggled to call for Lung Ruoxue, but Lung Ruoxue ignored her. Soon, both sides went their separate ways. In the room of the flying ship, the demon saw Xue sitting by the window and looking at the vast universe. He pulled her into his arms and deliberately asked with a smile, What, are you worried about that, Chao Meng? What's there to worry about? That man loves her. Lung Ruoxue said with certainty. Then why do you seem to have something on your mind? The demon said gloomily. I was just thinking that we've been on our honeymoon for a long time. I wonder how Grandpa and the others are doing. I'm starting to miss them. Lung Ruoxue said honestly. Why don't we go home? After thinking for a while, the demon said, although he had not had enough of the two of them alone, he was already very satisfied to be able to be alone with Xue for so long. Grandpa and the others might not be waiting for us at home. Lung Ruoxue shook her head when she heard this. Then what should we do? I don't want my wife to be unhappy. The demon said sadly. Continue our honeymoon, of course. If we're fated, we might be able to meet grandfather and the others at some place. Lung Ruoxue cupped her beautiful face and said. The demon nodded. It was not easy to come out. As long as Xue did not mention going home, He would not take the initiative to ask to go back. Very quickly, Lung Ruoxu's and the other two's flying ship left the entire star region. Not long after they left, a little boy with a cat in his arms suddenly appeared in the vast galaxy. P&D1. I'm from Big Sister's house. The little boy raised his head and said in a childish voice. The person who asked the question was amused and asked again, "What about your sister?" "I don't know. My sister left me and was taken away by someone." The little child's eyes were glistening with tears, and he immediately received the sympathy of the surrounding crowd, receiving a large amount of love. "How pitiful! You're still so young, how can you not have someone to take care of you? Why don't you come home with me first?" A woman in her early 30s said sympathetically. "No need, I just want to find my sister." The little boy's will was very firm, and his face seemed to say, "I will never be taken away." Thanks. When the others saw that the little boy was so clever, they also tried to persuade him, but all of them were rejected by the little boy without exception. At this time, the snow-white cat in the little boy's arms was a little impatient and reached out its sharp claws to the crowd. Most of the onlookers were middle-aged women. When they saw the kitten show signs of losing its temper, they unconsciously took a few steps back. In the end, under the awkward atmosphere, the middle-aged women reluctantly watched the cute baby turn and leave. Seeing that most of the people around him had left, the little boy carried the snow-white kitten to a corner. Immediately after, the snow-white kitten went crazy. "You idiot, I told you to find Nyo's whereabouts, not to act as a homeless child. You're really stupid. Look at what you've been doing all this time." The little white cat, Song, roared with a face of disappointment. Forming an alliance with Qingju could be said to be the thing that Song regretted the most in his life. This fellow was too stupid. Did it mean that Qingju could not do a single thing that he had asked Qingju to do? Every time, it would be angered half to death, and it still couldn't find Nyo's whereabouts. It was the same now. The moment he appeared, he was surrounded by people, just like the other places. Song was really about to die from anger. As for Qingju, he was naturally very aggrieved after being scolded. He said with a slightly choked voice, "Why don't you do it?" "Me? If I could come, would I still need you to come?" Song roared, so angry that the fur on his body stood up. "Don't be angry, I've already tried my best." Seeing that Song was angry, Green Vessel quickly comforted him. One had to know that it was not easy to have a companion in this unfamiliar place. He didn't want to be abandoned by Azure. Seeing Green Vessel like this, Song was naturally helpless. He then continued to roar, "Don't dawdle, continue searching. I've already felt Nyo's presence here, she definitely came here. Yes, I also feel that my sister is very close to me." Qingju clenched his small fist and said with great effort. After that, the two little fellows continued on their way. This time, Qingju was no longer acting like a poor baby who had been separated from his family. The man and beast turned their eyes to the star beasts in this star field. According to their thoughts, if Nyo really came here, in order to keep a low profile, the people here might not have seen her before, but star beasts were different. The majority of the star beasts here had not awakened their intelligence, and those with intelligence were only at the initial stage, unable to speak at all. Thus, it was the most correct choice to ask them for information. After all, while Lung Ruoxue might be wary of humans, she wouldn't be too wary of astral beasts. In addition, they were a baby and a little beast, so it was naturally most appropriate for them to find a star beast that couldn't speak to ask about the situation. At the very least, the astral beast would not have the chance to betray them. After setting their sights on the star beasts, the two of them looked for a few relatively high-level star beasts and asked. However, they didn't get any useful information from them. In the end, an astral beast reminded them that they could go to the mainframe of the vast expanse, Starfield, to get information. The words, Starfield mainframe, were unfamiliar to Green Vessel and Songdu. However, after a simple explanation from the star beast, the two of them finally understood that the Starfield mainframe was also a tool spirit. However, the mainframe of the star sector was different from them. The mainframe of the star sector managed network data, while they had a physical body. Following the address provided by Astral Beast, the two of them teleported to the control panel where the mainframe was located. As soon as the two of them got close, the screen of the mainframe, which had sensed the danger, turned into a mess of code. Suddenly, the entire vast space network was temporarily interrupted. "Get out here!" He squinted his eyes and roared. As soon as it finished speaking, a virtual baby appeared in front of Green Vessel and Azure. Azure looked curiously at the virtual entity that the Star Sector mainframe had created, and would even reach out to poke it from time to time. Seeing this, the little baby that the Star Sector mainframe had transformed into became shy. "Don't be like this, don't jabbed randomly." The virtual baby suppressed his fear and whispered with his head lowered. "Answer a few of my questions truthfully. If I'm satisfied, you'll be rewarded," Azure said as he retracted his claws. Chapter 3023, The Enemy Was Too Cunning, 7, Please Ask. The virtual baby knew that the human and beast in front of him were of a much higher level than him, so he didn't dare to be negligent. "Have you seen these two people?" While Tsang was speaking, Lung Ruoxue and Evildoer's image appeared in front of the Star Region mainframe. Seeing the two of them, the virtual baby's heart trembled even more. "Weiss, I've seen him." The virtual baby trembled and said honestly. When Tsang and Qingju heard this, they immediately became excited and quickly asked, "Where are they now?" "They were taken away by the people of the Alliance Council a while ago," the virtual baby said carefully. It was true that the Alliance had set their sights on Lung Ruoxue and the demon. Unfortunately, they were too late. There was no Alliance left. Seeing Tsang's anger, the virtual baby was so scared that it cowered a few times before saying, "I haven't finished." "Then hurry up and tell me," Tsang shouted. "They were indeed taken away by the Alliance, but I received news that the Alliance no longer exists. The families of the people from the Parliament were all punished by the legendary powerhouses and lost everything, but I don't know what exactly happened. Because the mainframe of the Parliament is above me, I don't know too much about the details." The virtual baby said sadly. He was only the mainframe of the vast space zone, and he couldn't reach the Alliance Parliament. "I see. Where's the Alliance Council?" Seeing that the other party really didn't know anything, Azure asked. Sue and I told him the coordinates and was about to return to the main computer to rest and recover his frightened little heart. Who knew that Tsang had pulled him out of the main computer and left with him? On the way, the white ball of light in Tsang's hand didn't dare to move, even though he wanted to know what his fate was. After the mainframe of the vast expanse star field was taken away, the network of the vast expanse star field went on strike, but Tsang obviously didn't care about that. They quickly arrived at the star sector where the Alliance Council was located, but all they saw was a scene of devastation. After using their divine senses to search, the two of them could not find Lung Ruoxue and the demon. They found a star beast and asked it for the reason. Then, the man and the beast left with the vast distance star field mainframe. At the same time, the mainframe of the Alliance Council, which was already extremely weak, was also taken away. This unlucky mainframe had managed to survive the laser cannon, but it had ended up in Cold's hands. This made one of the mainframe rather depressed, but against Cold's power, the unlucky mainframe didn't dare to resist and told him everything that had happened in the Alliance Parliament. Tsang and Green Vessel were furious. Someone dared to bully his sister. Someone dared to bully his girl. After the man and the beast learned the truth, they went to find the criminal to take revenge. Compared to Lung Ruoxue, who had only stripped the other party of their wealth and status, Tsang and Qingju's methods were much crueler. Their appearance had also caused the other clans, which had already suffered great losses, to become even worse. Thanks after that, they rushed to the Muyuan Galaxy. Muyuan Galaxy was the only galaxy that had not suffered any losses from the Alliance Conference incident that Tsang and Green Vessel knew of. Hence, it was not hard to deduce that Lung Ruoxue had some ties with the people from Muyuan Galaxy. Without any hesitation, the two of them appeared in front of the Emperor. The Emperor, who had been sitting in his study dealing with official matters, saw the man and beast suddenly appear in front of him. He was so frightened that his little heart couldn't stop trembling. He really couldn't understand how this man and beast had entered his study. Song went straight to the point, ignoring the emperor's shocked face, and directly asked, "Where's my girl? A talking star beast?" When Song opened his mouth, Emperor Muyuan was even more shocked, and his jaw almost fell off. After living for so many years, this was the first time he had learned that star beasts could speak. "Don't compare me to those low-level star beasts. Emperor Muyuan." Azure Fire roared as he sensed Emperor Muyuan's thoughts. Emperor Muyuan was embarrassed and at a loss. The strength of the little beast in front of him was so terrifying. It actually knew what he was thinking? However, the other party seemed to be here to ask for information. "Who's your girl?" After forcing himself to calm down, Emperor Muyuan asked carefully. Song didn't say anything more and directly played Lung Ruox's image. Looking at the familiar figure on the screen, Emperor Muyuan understood. No wonder this little beast could speak. It really wasn't a star beast. They've already left. Knowing that the other party wanted to know Lung Ruox's whereabouts, Emperor Muyuan quickly said. As soon as he finished speaking, Song and Green Vessel disappeared from his sight. Seeing how the other party came and went without a trace, he was even more convinced that befriending Lung Ruoxue and that demonic man was the right and wise choice. When Green Vessel and Azure learned that Lung Ruoxue had left, they naturally left dejectedly. At the same time, Lung Ruoxue and the demon leisurely arrived at a place that was similar to her previous life, but it was obviously more prosperous. That space was called Planet Indigo. There were no high-tech energy weapons like those in the star fields of advanced civilizations, nor were there any ability users. The humans living in that space, except for a small number who practiced a powerful martial art called ancient martial arts, were mostly ordinary people. However, the scenery there was as beautiful as a painting, so Lung Ruoxue and the demon had arranged for them to stay there and live the lives of ordinary people for the time being. Their residence was a 3-story villa by the sea. Through the window of the room, they could see the vast dark blue sea opposite them. This house was naturally not Lung Ruox's house. Instead, it was temporarily rented by her and the demon. Since he had come to a place where ordinary people lived, he naturally had to do as the Romans do. Alright. Lung Ruoxue had to admit that they had no money and no proof of identity, which was why they were unable to purchase land. The people here were not as accepting as the people in the vast expanse star field, which was why Lung Ruoxue was really unwilling to reveal her identity as a god. As trespassers with no identity, Lung Ruoxue and the other two had already learned the true meaning of keeping a low profile. But fortunately, in the eyes of ordinary people, a considerable number of experts here remained mysterious. So as long as they didn't buy fixed assets, no one would check their identity. Of course, they couldn't just build houses here. As such, Lung Ruoxue could only rent one. Chapter 3024. The enemy was too cunning. 8. Even though the rented house was barely satisfactory, the location was decent, so Lung Ruoxue was pretty satisfied. The only one who was not satisfied was probably Ji Kai. When he was in the high-tech civilization star field, he had finally become a rich man, but he didn't expect that he would become penniless again after being proud for a short time. The alliance dollars that circulated in the Star Alliance were not used here. Ji Kai was very worried. It was really hard to move without money. Glancing at Lung Ruoxue and the demon who were taking a walk by the sea, Ji Kai deeply felt that as a competent butler, he could not let his master and madam be troubled over such a small matter like money. However, when he was renting the house, he had already sold all the items that could be sold without attracting anyone's attention. In a short period of time, he had nothing to sell. Seeing that his pocket was cleaner than his face, he was anxious. Just as Ji Kai was feeling depressed, Lung Ruoxue and the demon had already entered the deep sea. The purpose of the two of them going to the bottom of the sea was naturally not to dive, but to make money. What was the most profitable thing in the sea? In addition to all kinds of fresh and delicious seafood, there were naturally pearls. Lung Ruoxue found out from the internet that the women on planet Netherblue were extremely infatuated with pearls, which were treasures found in the sea. Almost everyone had a pearl accessory, and top-grade pearls that could reach the level of a precious treasure naturally grew in hidden places in the deep sea that no one could destroy. After gathering a lot of high-quality pearls and playing with the fish, the two returned to the shore. At this time, Ji Kai had already discovered that the two of them were gone. He was running around the beach anxiously like ants on a hot pan. When he saw Leng Ruoxue and the demon, Ji Kai quickly went up to them and said with a face full of resentment, "Master, madam, where have you been? I was so worried. What, are you afraid that we'll leave you behind and leave on our own?" Leng Ruoxue laughed and teased, "Madam, why would I think that way?" Ji Kai felt wronged. Although he had such a thought for a moment, it was only for a moment, so he would never admit it. Seeing that he denied her intentions, Leng Ruoxue did not say much. She took out a black pearl the size of a baby's fist and said, "We're going to pick pearls? What a huge pearl!" Ji Kai's eyes widened in disbelief when he saw the big pearl. After many days of research, he knew that women's money was the easiest to earn in this world, and women loved pearl jewelry the most. After the surprise, Ji Kai's eyes lit up. Needless to say, he thought of money. A lot of money. Seeing that Ji Kai's eyes had turned into the dollar symbol, Leng Ruoxue smiled calmly. "Don't even think about it, I'm interested in it." "Madam, you have good eyes." Ji Kai was a bit depressed, but he naturally couldn't sell the things that Madam liked, so he could only continue to worry. Leng Ruoxue laughed as she looked at Ji Kai's unconcealed disappointment. Then, she pulled the evil demon back to her room. After 3 days of hard work in the room, Leng Ruoxue made a few sets of pearl jewelry and handed them to Ji Kai. "Thanks, sell it." Leng Ruoxue ordered. "I'll go now." With Leng Ruoxue's approval, Ji Kai was full of energy. After seeing off Ji Kai, who was walking on air, only Leng Ruoxue and the demon were left in the huge villa. The demon was naturally happy to be able to spend time with Xuer alone. Unfortunately, Ji Kai had returned too quickly. He had been out for less than 2 hours. Seeing that his master's expression was not good, Ji Kai quickly explained, "Master, the jewelry hasn't been sold yet. The jewelry company needs to raise money, so I came back first." "What jewelry company doesn't even have money? He had to raise money to buy a few sets of jewelry? Ji Kai, did you find a weak company? Don't sell Xuer's hard work for cheap." The demon was a little dissatisfied. The things that his wife had worked hard for several days, it was not good if they could not sell at a good price. Hearing this, Ji Kai's mouth twitched. It wasn't that the jewelry company didn't have money. He was the one who asked them to pay in cash. Which company would be able to produce such a large sum of cash? Ji Kai didn't forget the look on the face of the person in charge of the jewelry company when he said that he wanted all the money in cash. "Master, it's not that the jewelry company doesn't have money, but I'm asking for cash. The few sets of jewelry that Madam gave me were sold for a total of 120 million indigo coins. The other party did not have that much cash on hand at the moment, so the transaction could only be delayed." Not wanting his master to misunderstand, Ji Kai explained. Hearing this, Leng Ruoxue couldn't help but burst out laughing. All in cash, how could Ji Kai think of that? However, it seemed that Ji Kai could not be blamed. It was their fault that they did not have any identification and could not apply for the blue card. But when Leng Ruoxue thought of Ji Kai throwing a pile of money at them when they went out to buy things, she couldn't help but laugh. A week later, Leng Ruoxue and the evil spirit followed Ji Kai to the jewelry company. Besides wanting to see the 120 million in cash, he also wanted to cover for Ji Kai. After all, if Ji Kai was the only one who showed up with so much money, it might cause suspicion. When they arrived at the jewelry company, a middle-aged man immediately came out to greet them. "Mr. Ji, you're here?" The middle-aged man was extremely friendly. However, he only took one look at Ji Kai before his gaze was immediately attracted by Leng Ruoxue and the demon behind Ji Kai. It was mainly because the two of them were too beautiful, and they deliberately put on a cold, noble, and silent appearance, so it was difficult for the middle-aged man to ignore them. However, the middle-aged man had been in the business world for many years. Even though he was curious, he did not show it on his face. After a round of warm greetings with Ji Kai, he asked, "Who are these two?" "They are my bodyguards," Ji Kai said arrogantly, but cold sweat was pouring down his face. "Bodyguard? I didn't expect Mr. Ji's bodyguard to be so amazing. The middle-aged man exclaimed in admiration. This is nothing. In my family, their looks can only be considered ordinary. Ji Kai bragged without holding back. When the middle-aged man heard this, he thought to himself, this Mr. Ji's identity is indeed not ordinary. It seemed that it was no coincidence that the other party could take out so many beautiful jewelry. More importantly, the level of craftsmanship of those sets of jewelry was absolutely unprecedented. Even in the next thousands of years, no one would be able to replicate it. As such, those sets of jewelry were naturally more precious and unique. Faced with the middle-aged man's shock, Leng Ruoxue could not help but feel speechless. Chapter 30-25. The enemy was too cunning. 9. After giving Ji Kai a warning look, Ji Kai immediately understood and said carefully, Mr. Fong, can we make the deal now? Of course, the money is ready. We're just waiting for Mr. Ji to hand over the money and the goods. The middle-aged man smiled and invited Ji Kai and the other two into his office. The middle-aged man's office had a small room. When he led Ji Kai and the other two into the room, a room full of cash came into their sight. Towards this, the demon did not feel anything. He did not have any concept of money in his heart. On the other hand, Leng Ruoxue was calm. It was not like she had not seen so much money before. Only Ji Kai was so excited that he couldn't express it. Although he had more alliance dollars in his hands when he was in the high-tech civilization star field, that was all done through the internet. It was the first time he had seen so much cash. Immediately, the large denomination of cash dazzled his eyes. But fortunately, Ji Kai was only excited inside, and his face was still calm. So, he just randomly picked a few piles and counted them, then gave them to the middle-aged man. When the middle-aged man saw Ji Kai casually put the jewelry in the bag, his mouth couldn't help but twitch. Just how much of a prodigal was this person? Fortunately, the jewelry now belonged to him, so he took out the red velvet box and carefully wrapped the jewelry in several layers before putting it in the safe. The money in the house already belonged to Ji Kai. Seeing Ji Kai put the money into an ordinary sack that was half the height of a man, the middle-aged man was speechless. He couldn't help but complain that Ji Kai was not as casual as he usually was. However, he clearly could not control the other party's actions. Ji Kai only filled up 5 sacks with money. Then, Leng Ruoxue and the other two carried the 5 sacks filled with money and walked out of the jewelry company in a carefree manner under the twitching gaze of the middle-aged man. Even though Leng Ruoxue really wanted to keep the money, she resisted the urge to do so as not to attract attention. She thought to herself, this is a place for ordinary people. Don't do things that don't match the customs of the people here. With this thought in mind, Leng Ruoxue and the other two pretended to be calm as they carried the gunny sacks of money and walked on the streets. The 3 of them did not have any means of transportation. Apart from Leng Ruoxue, Ji Kai and the demon did not think of buying a car. Of course, it was mainly because they were penniless before. The little money they had was used to pay for the rent. Therefore, other than living in a villa, the 3 of them were living below the poverty line. Now that she had money, Leng Ruoxue naturally thought of the car problem. With a sweep of her divine sense, she knew that there was a 4S shop nearby, so she directly brought the evildoer and Ji Kai there. When they arrived at the entrance of the 4S shop, Leng Ruoxue and the other two were blocked. I'm sorry, we don't have any trash to sell here. The shop's receptionist saw that Leng Ruoxue was too beautiful and didn't like her. She also saw that Leng Ruoxue was dressed so ordinarily that she didn't look like a rich person. On top of that, she was carrying a gunny sack in her hand. Naturally, she treated her like a rubbish collector. The moment Leng Ruoxue heard this, her beautiful face turned cold. The anger in her heart rose. Was she a rubbish collector? I want to buy a car. Leng Ruoxue knew very well that the best way to punish someone who looked down on others was to throw money at them. Hence, she would not engage in a verbal battle with a waiter. That would lower her status. Thanks, how can you say that? How can we not afford it? As long as we're willing, we can even buy your shop. Ji Kai said unhappily. How much is it? The evildoer's face was also black as he suppressed his anger and looked at the hostess. At this moment, the hostess realized that there was a devastatingly beautiful man standing in front of her. How could she not have noticed him before? It was all that woman's fault for setting the wrong target. However, it was obviously too late to remedy the situation now. The hostess wasn't stupid. She knew that she was no longer welcomed, so after being stunned for a moment, she put on a disdainful expression and said in a high and mighty tone, "I'm priceless. I'm afraid you can't afford me. Just as well, I didn't plan on buying you." The demon smiled faintly. "Then why did you ask me how much it was?" The hostess was furious and asked. "Can't I even ask? Originally, I was still lacking a little servant girl at home, and I planned to buy you if the price was right. Who knew that a good like you could be priceless? Forget it, I'll just buy a car." Lung Ruoxue finished the receptionist's sentence and was about to walk into the shop. Seeing this, the hostess immediately stepped forward to stop them. Lung Ruoxue was impatient and gave Ji Kai a look. Ji Kai understood and knocked the hostess unconscious with a hand chop. Then, the three of them walked into the shop. This was a world that looked at one's appearance and clothing. Lung Ruoxue and the other two were dressed in ordinary clothes, so no one paid them any attention when they entered the store. However, the three of them obviously did not mind, and they were happy to have some peace and quiet. The three men who were carrying the gunny bags looked around. In the end, Lung Ruoxue had her eyes on the latest sports car that was worth close to 10 million. This sports car had a black streamlined body and was extremely beautiful. Lung Ruoxue had also taken a liking to this car's eye-catching appearance. As for its performance, she naturally did not care too much about it. Of course, such an expensive car would naturally have outstanding performance. After taking a fancy to it, she planned to pay for it. Ji Kai felt a little heartache at the price of the car and whispered, "Madam, this car is too expensive. I think we'd better pick a cheaper one. Anyway, we don't have much time to use a car, so there's really no need to buy such an expensive one. It's in this car," Lung Ruoxue said with certainty. They didn't really need it to be so expensive, but she had just become a nouveau riche, so she wanted to use money to crush these snobbish fellows. Seeing that Lung Ruoxue had made up her mind, Ji Kai could only follow her instructions. He shouted, "We want to buy a car. Is there anyone who can help us?" He shouted 3 times, but the service staff in the shop were busy with their own things and no one came. Seeing this, Ji Kai's anger grew, and he continued to shout, "If no one cares, well, just drive this car away." Upon hearing this, a waiter ran over and hurriedly stopped him. "Sir, you can't do this." "Then what do you want me to do?" "I already said that I wanted to buy a car, but there's no service staff here. Are you going to let the customer wait for you?" Ji Kai shouted. "We're too busy," a service staff member said in a low voice. Ji Kai glanced at the empty exhibition hall and sneered, "Busy? You guys are really busy. Forget it, I can't afford to use you. Get your person in charge to come out." Chapter 3026. The enemy was too cunning. 10. I'm the person in charge. What can I do for you, sir? Suddenly, a voice interrupted them. A young man with a nervous expression appeared in the exhibition hall. Beside him was the hostess who had been knocked unconscious by Ji Kai. Then, Ji Kai and the other two heard the hostess complain, "Manager, it's them. They want to rob our store. Call the police." Hearing the words of the hostess, Ji Kai was speechless. They hadn't even thought about robbing. How could they be charged with this? As such, should they satisfy the expectations of this hostess? While Ji Kai was hesitating, the young manager had already turned around and glared at the hostess. Then he smiled at Ji Kai and said, "Sir, I'm sorry. My staff must have misunderstood you. I know that you're not that kind of person. That might not be the case." Ji Kai glanced at the young man and said lightly. Hearing Ji Kai's words, Lung Ruoxue almost laughed out loud. On the other hand, the young man's expression turned ugly. He didn't know how to continue. Then, he helplessly walked to Ji Kai's side and said warmly, "Sir, do you want to buy a car? I'll personally serve you. What's your purpose?" Ji Kai suddenly became alert. The young man was depressed when he heard this. What motive could he have? Wasn't it because the shop assistant looked down on him? In his eyes, he could not afford to offend any potential customer. Who knew which one would become his real customer? However, he didn't expect that his enthusiasm would be mistaken as having ulterior motives. He was really wronged. Seeing the young man's aggrieved expression, Lung Ruoxue didn't want to waste too much time here. She immediately said, "We want this one." Hearing the voice, the young man turned around and saw the outstanding man and woman standing on the other side of the sports car. He was instantly stunned. How could such a person be a robber? "I'm sorry, my shop assistants have offended you before. I hope the three lords can be magnanimous and not lower themselves to their level. I will punish them." After the initial shock, the young man apologized. "We're not some big shot, we're just here to collect trash," Ji Kai said gloomily. The young man didn't know what to do. Why couldn't he continue the other person's words? Sensing Ji Kai's anger, the young man could only keep saying good things to calm Ji Kai down. After that, the young man turned his gaze towards Lung Ruoxue and smiled. "This car is a limited edition in the world. There are only 500 of them in the world. Miss, it's an honor to be able to buy it. I should feel honored just because there's a limit of 500 cars." Lung Ruoxue did not wait for the young man to finish his words of praise before she asked indifferently. The young man who had been talking non-stop was immediately at a loss for words. In fact, he just wanted to let the other party know that there were only a few cars. He did not expect the other party to have such a reaction. One must know that compared to the world's population of hundreds of billions, 500 was really a small number. Unfortunately, the other party did not appreciate it. In reality, one couldn't blame Lung Ruoxue for not appreciating their kindness. What was the use of having a limited number of cars to a god? No matter how fast a sports car was, could it be faster than a god's teleportation? The reason why Lung Ruoxue wanted to buy a car was mostly because she wanted to do as the Romans do. After all, they couldn't possibly walk out of the house in public in the future, right? Therefore, the person in charge of the 4S store had expressed the wrong feelings. "Quickly go through the procedures. I still have things to do." Lung Ruoxue did not want to waste any more time with the other party, so she immediately urged him on. The person in charge invited Lung Ruoxue and the other two into the office. Just as he took out the card swiping machine, he saw Ji Kai already taking out money from the sack. "Thanks, a little bit? How long would this take?" The person in charge's eyes were dull and he was in a daze. This was a real nouveau riche, right? It had to be said that Lung Ruoxue's act of throwing money at people had completely shocked the young person in charge, pushing his mental tolerance to the limit. Just then, a shrill scream came from outside. "Arg! This is a robbery!" Hearing the scream, the young man immediately came back to his senses and ran out of the room. The one who let out the shrill scream was the hostess. The young man saw her and asked nervously, "Where's the robber?" There were quite a few expensive sports cars in the store. If they were really robbed, the losses would definitely be huge. In your room, it's those three people," the hostess said fearfully. "Nonsense. Don't talk nonsense." When the young man heard this, he immediately reprimanded. However, the hostess seemed to have gone crazy and insisted that the other party had robbed her. No matter how the young man tried to stop her, she was convinced. Hearing the commotion, Lung Ruoxue and the other two walked out of the room. She glanced at the troublemaking hostess and asked calmly, "This young lady here claims that we're robbing you, but do you have any evidence? If you don't have any evidence, don't say anything. Otherwise, I'll sue you for slander. The money is the best evidence." Upon hearing Lung Ruoxue's words, the hostess hurriedly said. She peeked at the other party and saw that he had a lot of cash in his hands. "Did the money tell you that I robbed them?" Lung Ruoxue was curious. What kind of logic was this? Why would a normal person put cash in a sack? Why are you walking around with so much money? The hostess wanted to use common sense to convince others, but unfortunately, she was facing Lung Ruoxue. Lung Ruoxue smiled faintly. "According to what you said, I'm not a normal person? To tell you the truth, I like to put money in gunny sacks and carry them everywhere. Why can't I? Is it against the law to do so? Although the law doesn't say that it's against the law, no one would do that. So, the three of you are definitely abnormal. The hostess continued to quibble. Is it because no one would do this? Or is it because you're too inexperienced and have never seen it before? Miss, from now on, you won't feel strange about such things anymore, so don't make a fuss, okay? Lung Ruoxue smiled faintly. That's right, don't be like this in the future, it's too embarrassing. Otherwise, we could sue you and put you in jail for framing us. This shop would also be implicated by you. How can a customer who came to buy something rob you? Do you still want to do business? Ji Kai also pretended to be angry. He was so angry that he laughed. His last sentence was directed at the person in charge. The person in charge broke out in a cold sweat. He glared at the hostess and warned her not to cause any more trouble before he respectfully invited Lung Ruoxue and the other two back into the office. Chapter 3027. The enemy was too cunning. 11. After a series of apologies, Lung Ruoxue and the other two expressed that they would not hold it against him. Only then did the person in charge feel at ease. Then, he resigned himself to his fate and counted the money. He then quickly went through the procedures for Lung Ruoxue. It was only when he saw Lung Ruoxue and the other two out of his sight that the person in charge could finally relax. After that, the receptionist was fired. Lung Ruoxue was driving the new sports car. The evildoer sat in the front passenger seat. Ji Kai could only sit in the back seat unwillingly. During this period, Ji Kai wanted to test the new car's speed more than once, but Lung Ruoxue only asked him one question. Do you know how to drive? Ji Kai's thoughts were extinguished. Ji Kai had driven a hover car and a spaceship before, but he had never driven a sports car. Madam, when did you learn to drive? Ji Kai couldn't help but ask curiously when he saw how well Lung Ruoxue was driving. I was born with it. Lung Ruoxue turned around and glanced at Ji Kai, smiling. Ji Kai was speechless. His wife was really too much. Seeing that Ji Kai had finally quieted down, Lung Ruoxue was satisfied. On the way home, they passed by a restaurant with unique decorations. Lung Ruoxue suddenly felt a little hungry, so she pulled Evildoer and Ji Kai in to try the delicacies of planet Indigo. This time, they didn't carry gunny sacks in their hands, so they naturally weren't treated as garbage collectors. After successfully entering the restaurant, Lung Ruoxue and the other two were about to find a seat when a surprised voice suddenly rang in their ears. Shuer, is it really you? Lung Ruoxue's face was filled with question marks, but seeing that the other party was someone she didn't know, she didn't think that he was talking to her. After all, there were many people in the world who called her Shuer. She couldn't possibly think that someone was calling her just because she heard someone calling her Shuer. After confirming that it was a stranger, Lung Ruoxue and the other two ignored the handsome man. When the handsome man saw this, he immediately became anxious and ran to Lung Ruoxue, asking anxiously, Shuer, you've misunderstood me. There's really nothing going on between me and that woman. I only like you. Sir, I think you've got the wrong person. Lung Ruoxue said helplessly. Go away, we don't know you. The demon's face was also black as he roared. Shuer, how could you do this to me? Do you hate me that much? You actually pretended not to know me and got together with another man. I know you just want to make me angry. Let's not throw a tantrum, okay? Other than you, I won't love anyone else. You have to believe me. The handsome man ignored the demon and said to Lung Ruoxue. Hearing this, Lung Ruoxue didn't know what to say. This guy was the male lead in a certain romance drama, right? Right. It was a pity that she was not interested in romance dramas. The demon's face turned even darker, and he was so angry that he wanted to beat someone up. Damn it, meeting a mental patient just for a meal. Today was really a lively day. Ji Kai's eyes widened in disbelief again. Looking at this sudden scene, he also felt that he had encountered too many things today. After a long while, Lung Ruoxue, who had taken a few deep breaths, saw that the unfamiliar man was only looking at her affectionately and had no intention of leaving. She could only repeat, Sir, I really don't know you. Lung Ruoxu's denial once again caused the handsome man to fly into a rage out of humiliation. He then roared, "Don't tell me your name isn't Lung Ruoxue? Thanks, if she's called Lung Ruoxue, it means that I didn't get the wrong person," the handsome man said excitedly. As for Lung Ruoxu's last sentence, he automatically ignored it. Hearing this, Lung Ruoxue couldn't help but roll her eyes. What kind of bandit logic was this? Following that, she heard the man's gentle voice. "Shui, don't be angry with me. I promise you, I'll ignore that woman in the future." "Stop. Sir, can you please not mention this again? I really don't know you." Lung Ruoxue was going a little crazy. This man looked like a decent human, but why couldn't he understand human language? "Shui, I've already promised you. Why are you still angry with me?" the handsome man said with a heartbroken expression. Lung Ruoxue was exasperated. "I'm not eating anymore. Let's go home." With that, Lung Ruoxue turned around and left. The handsome man wanted to give chase but was stopped by the demon. When love rivals meet, their eyes turn red. The handsome man's eyes were spitting fire as he glared at the evildoer and roared, "Shui is mine. Get lost, you third party." Third party? Was he talking about him? The demon was stunned. He was her husband. Why did other men call her a mistress? "Shui is my wife, you should be the one to get lost." In terms of aura, the demon could definitely defeat anyone. The handsome man was frightened by the demon. He only came back to his senses when the demon and Ji Kai chased Lung Ruoxue out of the restaurant. By the time he gave chase, Lung Ruoxue and the other two had already disappeared. Back at the seaside villa, Lung Ruoxue was still depressed. Seeing that his wife was in a bad mood, the demon quickly comforted her. "Honey, that idiot must have mistaken you for someone else. Don't be angry." "You're not angry?" Lung Ruoxue asked curiously when she saw how nonchalant the demon was. "Of course I'm angry too. But that person is an idiot, and we're the ones who are tired from fighting an idiot. That's why we can't do that kind of losing business, don't you think?" The demon coaxed. "Yes." Lung Ruoxue nodded. Actually, she was mainly afraid that the evildoer would get angry because of this, so she pretended to be depressed. Now that the evildoer didn't even take this small matter seriously, she naturally wouldn't mind. After all, those people were just passers-by to them. It was obvious that they had quickly forgotten about the unpleasantness of that day. Chapter 3028, You Have a Child. 1. In the next few days, Ji Kai was completely immersed in his passion for the new sports car. Lung Ruoxue couldn't help but sigh when she saw this. Men couldn't resist the temptation of a sports car at all. However, the one who stuck to her was obviously different. Lung Ruoxue glanced at the evildoer beside her and asked curiously, "Hubby, aren't you interested in sports cars?" When the demon heard this, he shook his head and said shyly, "My dear wife, I'm only interested in you." Lung Ruoxue did not know how to react. This reply was too mushy. She turned her head stiffly and looked at Ji Kai, who was learning how to drive. However, as soon as she took a look, she saw Ji Kai crash into a huge tree beside the seaside road like a kite with a broken string. The front of the car instantly deflated and gray smoke burst out. Lung Ruoxue was speechless. She knew that Ji Kai was a prodigal. Fortunately, the car had insurance, so she felt a little comforted. After Ji Kai got out of the car gloomily, he ran to where Lung Ruoxue and his evil master were with a sad face. Then he burst into tears. "Master, madam, this car is really not sturdy. When I drove a hover car in the past, it was much more off-limits than this sports car. So we were tricked into buying a fake one. I think we should return this car." After hearing Ji Kai's words, Lung Ruoxue really wanted to complain. How could a hover car be the same as a sports car? Those cars were flying in the sky, so they were much more dangerous than sports cars. Besides, no one asked you to drive your sports car into a tree. This prodigal child. After retorting in her heart, Lung Ruoxue only said, "Call the forest shop. I'll get it repaired. Do you need money for maintenance?" Ji Kai asked carefully. This was what he was most concerned about. "I'll deduct the money from your salary." Lung Ruoxue laughed evilly. Ji Kai was stunned. Although he really wanted to ask if he had a salary, he still wanted to ask. However, he didn't dare to ask. After saying, "Oh," Ji Kai resigned himself to his fate and went to make the call. The person in charge of the 4S store quickly sent after-sales personnel to check on the situation. When they saw the car and the tree in close contact, the person's face darkened. This was clearly a man-made accident caused by improper driving. This kind of man-made damage, their shop generally wouldn't give free repair, nor would they provide insurance. However, facing the 3 pairs of eyes that were staring at him, he did not dare to say that he would not give them free maintenance. The gazes of these 3 people were truly too frightening, especially a certain middle-aged man. When she saw him, her eyes glowed like a wolf seeing meat. If he said that he would not give her free repair, she did not know if she could leave this place alive. After hesitating for a while, the person still bravely said, "I'm really sorry, but this accident was man-made, so we can't repair it for free. Even insurance doesn't cover such a situation." P&D of 1. Sir, it's not that we don't want to repair it, but we don't want to give it free repair. In your situation, it's obvious that it was man-made. No 4S shop would give it free repair. Also, please forgive me for being a busybody, but with this car's condition, even if you complain to the Consumer Association, you can't change the fact that you can't repair it for free. The man explained patiently. After all, they were in the right. Therefore, he wasn't afraid of the other party making a fuss. "Thanks, you mean we're blaming ourselves for the car?" Ji Kai wasn't stupid. He could tell. "Nonsense. It's clearly the quality of your car that's not good. The car I used to drive, even if it had an accident, it wouldn't have been like this." Ji Kai shouted, "May I ask what kind of car you used to drive?" Hearing this, the person asked curiously, "Floating. That car's much sturdier than your sports car. It won't be damaged at all by such a degree of impact. Compared to my previous car, your sports car is like paper." Ji Kai pestered them. He had decided that he would get free repair from this shop because he had no money. After hearing Ji Kai's words, the man started to think very seriously in his heart. However, after thinking for a long time, he still couldn't figure out what brand the sports car was. This name was too unfamiliar to him. When Lung Ruoxue saw the after-sales personnel of the 4S store frowning and looking like he was in a dilemma, she almost couldn't control her laughter. In order to save money, Ji Kai was willing to do anything. However, Lung Ruoxue was still very supportive of Ji Kai's life, so she was happy to watch the show. Since she was silent, the demon was even more lazy to talk. "I'm sorry, sir, I've never heard of this brand. May I know which factory produced the hover car?" After thinking for a long time, the confused after-sales staff finally couldn't help but ask. Although asking such a question made him seem very unprofessional, he was willing to go all out in order to get to the bottom of it. Hearing this, Ji Kai knew he couldn't say anything, so he said in disdain, "It's just a small manufacturer. I'm afraid you won't know even if I tell you. Hurry up and take the car back to fix it. Also, tell your manager that I won't pay a single cent because the quality of your car is not good." After saying that, Ji Kai left everyone behind and swaggered back to the villa not far away with his head held high. Seeing this, Lung Ruoxue smiled at the after-sales personnel and said, "It'll have to trouble you to make the quality of this car better." After saying that, she pulled the evildoer and left without looking back. The after-sales personnel who had been left behind was completely dumbfounded. He was being abandoned. He looked at the sports car that had been badly damaged and felt gloomy. He would not be able to explain to the person in charge if he were to drag such a car back. However, the person in charge's words still rang in his ears. After some serious consideration, he resigned himself to his fate and dragged the broken sports car back to the shop. The person in charge of the 4S store was shocked when he saw the sports car being dragged back. How did it end up like this? Without waiting for the person in charge to ask, the after-sales staff took the initiative to explain. When the person in charge found out that the car had been damaged because it had hit a tree and that the owner of the car had asked them to repair it for free, he was deeply worried. It was not impossible to repair the car for free because the car was insured. However, the condition of this car was obviously not insured. Therefore, free repair was too much of a loss for them. For a moment, the person in charge didn't dare to make any decisions on his own. Finally, he reported the matter to the head office. Chapter 3029. You Have a Child. 2. The next day, the head office sent a vice president who was in charge of this matter. The person in charge of the 4S store accompanied him to the door to discuss this matter with Lung Ruoxue and the other two. Lung Ruoxue and the other two had received a notice from the person in charge early on and were waiting at home for a certain CEO to come. However, when Lung Ruoxue saw the vice president, she was completely depressed. Because that person was none other than the emotional man she had met at the restaurant earlier. The moment the emotional man saw Lung Ruoxue, he was so moved that his eyes were brimming with tears. His voice also started to choke up. Shuer, I finally found you. I didn't expect you to be hiding here. Lung Ruoxue was speechless. She did not hide, all right? She had been living here all along. Besides, she wasn't found by this man, it was a coincidence. Everything was a coincidence. He gave the dark-faced evildoer a comforting look, then turned to glare at Ji Kai. This guy wanted to save some money, but he ended up provoking this emotional man. This was great, there was no place to hide. Lung Ruoxue had already started to think about the possibility of changing her residence. However, after thinking about it for a while, she felt that it was too much of a loss to move to another place for a sentimental man. They had already signed the rental contract with the owner. If they broke the contract, not only would they not get the money back, but they would also have to pay the penalty fee. Damn it. Lung Ruoxue was extremely depressed. The person in charge's jaw almost fell off when he saw the vice president's aggrieved expression. Oh my God. What was going on? Old lovers meeting? It didn't look like it. This was because when Lung Ruoxue and the other two saw the vice president, they clearly showed a rather disdainful expression. Especially the middle-aged man, his eyes were so fierce that he wanted to skin the vice president alive. Based on the above situation, the person in charge was certain that the meeting between the two sides would definitely not be harmonious. He hoped that they would not fight. The person in charge prayed silently. On the other hand, Ji Kai was as depressed as Lung Ruoxue. He had never thought that this wolf would be summoned to his house. Now, his evil master would probably hate him to death. Ji Kai glared at the emotional man, wishing that he could make the other party retreat in the face of difficulties. However, it was obvious that the emotional man did not notice Ji Kai's situation at all. His thoughts were all on Lung Ruoxue. Shuer, didn't I already explain it clearly last time? Seeing that Lung Ruoxue had not said a word, the emotional man asked again. Sir, you've got the wrong person. Lung Ruoxue sighed and finally said. When the person in charge heard this, he heaved a sigh of relief. It turned out that the vice president had mistaken him for someone else. Good. He didn't want to offend the three of them, because they didn't look like people to be trifled with. One had to say, the person in charge was right. However, the vice president, who had completely fallen into his own fantasy, refused to give up and said with a sad expression, Shuer, what do you want me to do? I'll definitely do as you say. Really? Lung Ruoxue was skeptical. She did not think that this man would give up so easily. Of course, to show my sincerity, just tell me what you want. I'll definitely do it. The emotional man promised. All right, then please leave my life. I'm really not the person you're looking for. Lung Ruoxue didn't want to miss the opportunity and hurriedly said. Fix the car while you're at it, Ji Kai added. Thanks. When the emotional man heard this, his eyes immediately became wet and he said, I'll help you fix the car, but Shuer, can you not chase me away? I really can't live without you. We cannot. Master, you've got the wrong person. Lung Ruoxue's attitude was a little forceful. She didn't want to waste any more time with this fellow. Otherwise, this evildoer would definitely be angry. Shuer, I will never mistake you for someone else. Even if you turn into ashes, I will still recognize you. The sentimental man said seriously after hearing Lung Ruoxue's words. Lung Ruoxue didn't know how to react. She gave Ji Kai a you-can-handle-it look and left with the evildoer. Seeing that Lung Ruoxue was going upstairs with another man, the sentimental man wanted to follow her regardless of the consequences. Ji Kai blocked his way and said, "Sir, this is a private place, no one is allowed to approach. I'm not an idle person, Im Shui Er's fiancé." The emotional man decisively gave himself an identity. Ji Kai was speechless for a while, then he laughed evilly, "Sir, that's my madam. She doesn't know you at all, so don't think too highly of yourself. Go and find your Shui." There were many people with the same name in this world. Don't pester someone else's wife, it's immoral. After talking to the emotional man, Ji Kai turned to the person in charge and said, "Hurry up and drag your vice president back, or I won't be polite." "Vice president, let's go back first." Upon hearing this, the person in charge was shocked and quickly said to the emotional man, he was really afraid that Ji Kai would do what he said. It was obvious that he was already angry. However, was it really a good thing for him to know so many secrets? He wouldn't be killed, right? Of course, what made him even more depressed was that he had not even come to an agreement on the conditions. The vice president had agreed to fix it for him, and from the looks of it, it was definitely free. The emotional man was extremely reluctant when he heard the person in charge's words. However, he knew that Shui had misunderstood him, so she would not forgive him so easily. Hence, he only hesitated for a moment before he obediently let the person in charge pull him away. Seeing the two of them leave, Ji Kai's heart that was in his throat finally relaxed a little. The moment the two of them left, Lung Ruoxue and the demon walked out of the room. When Ji Kai saw this, he quickly went to greet him. Then, the three of them began to discuss in the living room. The main topic of discussion was naturally who the Shui that the emotional man was talking about was. Lung Ruoxue thought for a long time, but she still couldn't figure it out. Ji Kai thought for a while before asking carefully, "Madam, are you the only child? I have an older brother. What's wrong?" Lung Ruoxue replied honestly, "You don't have an elder or younger sister?" Ji Kai asked again. "No, I didn't." Lung Ruoxue thought for a moment before saying, Ji Kai didn't dare to ask the rest of the question. Otherwise, he would be the one in trouble. Seeing Ji Kai's hesitation, Lung Ruoxue asked calmly, "You want to ask me if I have an illegitimate daughter at home, right?" "Madam, I didn't ask that. Do you have a brain? If there's really an illegitimate daughter, would she have the same name as me?" Lung Ruoxue was speechless. Chapter 30. You have a baby. 3. Then what's going on? Both Ji Kai and Lung Ruoxue could not understand. It must be Qingju's doing. Suddenly, the demon spoke. He had not forgotten that Qingju had once transformed into Shui Er's appearance to trick him into canceling the engagement. He would remember this for life. "Qingju is here too? Why can't I sense it?" Lung Ruoxue did not want to suspect Qingju at all. In her heart, Qingju was very innocent and would never have thought of such an idea. But the demon was quite certain. "Master, who is Qingju?" Ji Kai couldn't help but ask. "He's a detestable fellow," the demon said through gritted teeth. Even though Lung Ruoxue did not really want to treat Qingju as a suspect, the demon had already made up his mind. Lung Ruoxue had no choice but to let him be. A week later, the sports car that Lung Ruoxue had taken for repairs was sent back. Looking at the brand new body, Lung Ruoxue and the other two expressed their satisfaction. The only thing they were not satisfied with was that this car was driven back by the sentimental man. When the demon saw the man, his face immediately darkened without hiding it. However, the emotional man did not mind at all. After his inept advisor's counseling, he became much calmer when he saw Lung Ruoxue. He was no longer like before, playing hard to get. Unfortunately, his target was Lung Ruoxue, and he was destined to fail. Seeing that Lung Ruoxue wasn't even looking at him, the emotional man was very worried. In order not to make Lung Ruoxue feel disgusted, he suppressed the reluctance in his heart and left Lung Ruoxue's villa. After walking for a distance, the emotional man couldn't help but look back every 3 steps. Seeing that the man was really here to give him the car and didn't continue to pester him, Ji Kai expressed his surprise. Strange. He actually didn't confess his love to Madam. Ji Kai couldn't help but ask. As expected, his words received glares from Lung Ruoxue and the demon. Ji Kai, who only realized later that he had said something wrong, hurriedly excused himself to practice driving and left the sight of his master and Madam. However, in less than half an hour, Ji Kai came back dejectedly. The first thing he said when he saw Lung Ruoxue and the demon was, "Master, Madam, I've damaged the car again." "You hit a tree again?" Lung Ruoxue was speechless. This speed was really fast. "It's not the same tree," Ji Kai explained in a low voice. He had something on his mind, so he accidentally bumped into the tree. "What? From what you're saying, you want to knock down all the trees on the side of the road?" Lung Ruoxue was speechless. What benefits did that guy give you to make you help him like this? At this time, the demon's eyes were also spewing fire as he roared. Ji Kai was dumbfounded. He didn't help a certain someone. How could his master misunderstand him like this? Ji Kai expressed his grievance. Thanks, the evildoer, who was about to go crazy, pulled Lung Ruoxue and left Ji Kai behind to return to his room. Although Ji Kai felt wronged, he still had to inform the person in charge. When the person in charge heard the news, he was dumbfounded. Another crash? Or a tree? Wasn't this speed a little too fast? Facing the person in charge's suspicion, Ji Kai could only insist that the quality of his car was not good. The person in charge was so angry that he almost had a heart attack. After reporting the matter, the vice president ran over in a hurry. Seeing the red-faced vice president with sweat on his forehead, the person in charge couldn't help but sigh. He couldn't keep a child. He had already spent a lot of money repairing Lung Ruoxue and the other two's cars. If he were to do it again, he would have enough money to buy a new batch of cars. At this moment, the person in charge felt that he had made a huge loss by selling the car. However, the vice president didn't think so. How could he not grasp such a good opportunity to get close to his sweetheart? At this moment, he was treating Ji Kai as his benefactor. He rushed to Lung Ruoxue's residence at top speed. The vice president led his men to pull away the sports car that had crashed into the tree. The only regret he had was not seeing Shuer. However, there was still time in the future and there would be plenty of opportunities, so he was not in a hurry. Before he left, he didn't forget to give Ji Kai a grateful and encouraging look, as if saying, "Do your best. That's the only way you'll have the chance to come." Facing the man's expectation, Ji Kai was completely worried. He really didn't do it on purpose. Who could he blame for the quality of the car? But now, both sides had misunderstood him. So, what was he going to do in the future? Although Ji Kai was sad, when the car was repaired and sent back, he still drove it and crashed into it again. As a result, the owner ignored him and didn't even give him a good face, while the sentimental man became his best friend. Of course, the so-called best friends was only what the emotional man thought. Ji Kai would not abandon his master and wife for the immediate benefits. Therefore, with the idea of infiltrating the enemy's base to get information, he became familiar with the emotional man. The man's name was Chu Senator. He was the second young master of the Chu family, one of the top 10 families on planet Faint Blue. He was handsome, rich, and had an extraordinary status. He was very popular with women on planet Faint Blue. He was even praised as the diamond-ranked bachelor that women wanted to marry the most. It was said that he was ranked 5th. When Ji Kai found out about this situation, he immediately reported it to his master. Unfortunately, the demon didn't care at all. He was just a mortal. What could he do in the diamond world? What he wanted to know was how that guy knew Shuer. Ji Kai then continued to ask around, and Chu Sen, who treated Ji Kai as a confidant, told him everything he knew. Back then Shuer and I met at the beach. At that time, she stood alone by the beach, facing the ocean. She looked so lonely, so heartbreaking. With just one look, I fell in love with Shuer at first sight. Later on, I found out that Shuer had been abandoned, and my heart ached for her even more. I also want to know which blind man dared to abandon my Shuer. Somewhere by the sea, Chu Sen, who was chatting with Ji Kai, said. After hearing this, Ji Kai couldn't help but curse silently. From Chu Sen's words, he was very sure that Shuai was not his wife. Based on his master's protective personality, it was impossible for him to abandon his wife. Ji Kai, tell me the truth. Did your master abandon that man, Shuai? They've made up now? Just as Ji Kai was complaining to himself, Chu Sen thought of something else. No, you've really got the wrong person. Ji Kai quickly said. Ji Kai, we're so familiar with each other, and I treat you as my friend. Don't lie to me. Chu Sen didn't believe him. Chapter 30-31. You have a child. 4. I swear on my character that my madam is not the person you're looking for. Ji Kai said seriously. Then where is my Shuai? Shuai, I miss you so much. Why can't we acknowledge each other even though we're so close? Do you really hate me that much? As he spoke, Chu Sen started to choke up again. Ji Kai was speechless when he saw the other party like this. From the looks of it, Chu Sen did not believe him. Watching his evil master go back to his room, Ji Kai was speechless and asked the heavens. In the days that followed, Chu Sen still came to report every other day. Of course, he did not get to see Leng Ruoxue even once. Every time he left, he was extremely disappointed. At the same time, Qing Ju and Song, who were searching for Leng Ruoxue in the galaxy, suddenly felt that Leng Ruoxue was very close to them. The two of them looked at each other and said in unison, "Nether blue star." Before Qing Ju and Song left, they had left a mark on the people they had met. Hence, whenever the other party's emotions fluctuated, they would be able to sense it. Hence, after knowing that Leng Ruoxue might have gone to the Serene Blue Planet, the two of them rushed over to the Serene Blue Planet. Half a month later, a baby carrying a snowy white kitten arrived at Leng Ruoxue's villa. Standing outside, Qing Ju and Song Du felt a little nostalgic. At this moment, the door of the villa opened. Ji Kai stuck his head out from inside, but he didn't see the guest that the master and madam had mentioned. Just as he was about to close the door, he lowered his head and happened to see Qing Ju. Looking at the one-year-old child, Ji Kai was a little speechless. Whose child was this? Where's Darren? Ji Kai looked left and right. He did not connect the baby in front of him with the guests that Leng Ruoxue and the demon had mentioned. Where's my sister? Seeing someone come out from inside, Qing Ju was no longer afraid and asked directly. Sister? Little friend, is your sister missing? Did you call the police? Ji Kai's heart softened when he saw such a pitiful little girl. My sister is inside. Qing Ju pointed at the villa and said helplessly. Idiot. Song also said. Ji Kai was already surprised when he heard Green Vessel's words. Now, he was dumbfounded when he saw a little white cat cursing at him. He couldn't speak for a long time. Seeing that he was in a daze, Qing Ju sighed softly and had no choice but to go in himself. His sister must be waiting for him. It was not until Green Vessel walked past Ji Kai that Ji Kai suddenly woke up, turned around and shouted, Master, madam, the cat is talking. After shouting, he ran into the courtyard. Leng Ruoxue and the demon in the living room were speechless when they heard this. Green Vessel was also speechless. Only Tsung was calm. Just as Leng Ruoxue stepped out of the living room, Tsung had already turned into a ray of white light and flew towards her. Green Vessel did not want to be outdone and also flew forward like an arrow. Seeing this, Ji Kai was dumbfounded again. Thanks sensing Ji Kai's thoughts, Green Vessel turned around and said in disdain while running, What's a flying ship? You can even compare to me. After saying this, he plunged into Leng Ruoxue's embrace. Song Zi was one step ahead of him and occupied the best position. These two guys were extremely fast. Even if the demon wanted to stop them, he was a step too late. He could only glare at the man and cat with his fire-spewing eyes. Ji Kai, who had suffered a heavy blow, was speechless for a long time. Sister, I missed you so much. After disdaining Ji Kai, Green Vessel looked up at Leng Ruoxue and said coquettishly, I've finally found my sister. I'm so happy. Qing Ju felt that he was satisfied. It was the same for Azure. It only realized how much it missed Leng Ruoxue when it saw her. On the other hand, the demon's face was black. When he saw these two guys, he knew that his two-person world was over. But now, if he wanted to leave with Schwer alone, it would not be so easy. Forget it. He should be satisfied after being alone with Schwer for so long. I really can't be too greedy. I missed you guys too. After consoling the evildoer, Lung Ruoxue carried Qingju and Song back to her room to catch up with the two little fellows. Ji Kai had a stomach full of questions. When the demon heard this, he only said in anticipation, "It would be great if someone could really kidnap them, but what a pity. Those two guys are not human, and no one can kidnap them." Oh heavens and earth! What did he mean by not human? Ji Kai didn't dare to think further. In the days to come, he would have two more young masters. After knowing that Ji Kai was the demon's target, Song and Qingju immediately treated Ji Kai as a thorn in their side. The man and cat ordered Ji Kai around every day, but Ji Kai didn't dare to speak out in anger. He didn't even know why he was rejected by the little boy and the kitten. He didn't think he had done anything wrong. Other than being a little too shocked when he first saw them, there was really nothing else. However, after a few days of interaction, he was already quite calm when facing Tsong, who could speak. Since he had masters like the evildoer and Lung Ruoxue, it was not a big deal to know a cat that could only talk. Ji Kai, who had calmed down, did his best to serve everyone in the family. Who knew that just as he got used to this kind of life, Chu Sen, who had not appeared for some reason, actually moved next door and became their neighbor. Ji Kai, who knew all this, suddenly felt terrible. Seeing Chu Sen come to visit him as his new neighbor, Ji Kai really wanted to just faint. It was not enough that he came to see him almost every day, and now he even moved next door. What the hell was this? Looking at Chu Sen, Ji Kai gave up. However, the evildoer was not as angry as Ji Kai had imagined. He smiled and invited Chu Sen into the living room to receive him warmly. Ji Kai couldn't believe his evil master's abnormal behavior. In fact, not only the evil master, but even the madam, the little Qingju, and the snow-white cat named Song were very calm when they saw Chu Senator. The only one who was not calm was Ji Kai, an ordinary human. Ji Kai calmed down his complicated feelings and stiffly went to pour tea for Chu Senator. Chu Sen, who had just sat down in the living room, looked at Lung Ruoxue affectionately. His gaze was immediately attracted by the snow-white cat in her arms. Chapter 30-32. You have a child. 5. He was too familiar with this cat. When he saw Lung Ruoxue and the white cat, Chu Sen was even more certain that this woman was the woman he had been looking for. Suppressing the joy in his heart, Chu Sen chatted as if nothing had happened. "Schwer, your cat looks so familiar. I think I've seen it somewhere before." "Oh really? White cats are very common. There's nothing to be surprised about." Lung Ruoxue replied half-heartedly, obviously uninterested in this question. "That's true. However, your cat is of a very pure breed and its fur is very bright. I can tell that it's a very rare and precious cat." Chu Sen praised. Hearing this, Lung Ruoxue's reaction was very calm, but Song almost couldn't control himself and wanted to scratch her. "You bastard! You're the one with a pure breed. Your whole family is pure breed." Song wasn't a real cat, so it hated people saying that about it. However, it felt a little guilty facing Chu Senator. It was even more afraid that the evil man would notice something. Hence, it could only suppress the burning anger in its heart and lay quietly in Lung Ruoxue's arms, pretending to be noble and cold. At this moment, Song heard Chu Sen continue, "Yes, is yours a male or a female?" "It's probably a male." Lung Ruoxue was not too sure. "It's a male." The demon was certain. "That's great. I have a pure-blooded female cat at home. I think we can let them mate. I believe that the baby they give birth to will be pure. What do you think?" Chu Sen laughed. After days of thinking, he decided to change his strategy and try to integrate into her family. He believed that in time, Schwer would be touched by his deep love. Who knew that just as he finished speaking, the teacup in front of Lung Ruoxue was flipped over by the furious Song. Of course, Chu Sen didn't think that it was out of anger. He just thought that the cat didn't mean it. At a place where he couldn't see, Song's sharp claws had already reached out. However, it was stopped by Lung Ruoxue. After all, there was nothing wrong with what he said. But Song was furious. Your sister. It was not interested in female cats. However, the evil demon was obviously very interested in this topic and pulled Chu Sen to ask him seriously, as if he was responsible for his cat. Chu Sen also showed great sincerity and answered almost all of their questions. In the end, the two of them reached an agreement to find a chance to let the two cats get along. After sending Chu Sen off, the evil demon smiled at Song. Song, you're a person with a partner in the future, so you can't be willful anymore. Damn it. I don't like female cats. With no one else present, Azure no longer had to hide himself. He roared at evildoer angrily and even flashed his sharp claws. I really want to grab the pretty boy of the demonic man and kill him. How could he be so annoying? However, although he thought about it, Azure didn't dare to fight with the evildoer here, because Nyo had warned them that this was the world of mortals. They could bicker, but they were forbidden from fighting. In particular, it was forbidden to fight with demons. Otherwise, planet Dark Blue would be destroyed in their hands. Song, who would always listen to Lung Ruoxue, naturally didn't want to make his girl angry. As for evildoer, he wouldn't do anything that would make his wife unhappy. Under the situation where both of them were deliberately restraining themselves, the man and beast seemed to be at peace. It was because of this that even though the demon suspected that Chu Sen was provoked by Tsang and Green Vessel, he did not question them officially. He would only mention this person occasionally. Thanks as for Tsang and Qingju, they pretended not to know Chu Senator. However, the demon wasn't angry. It would be abnormal if the two detestable people were willing to admit to this. Hence, with an unknown motive, he decided to temporarily put aside his hostility towards Chu Senator. It was this thought that made him warm up to Chu Senator. Lung Ruoxue was smart enough not to get involved in the daggers-drawn battle between the man and the beast. After all, neither of them would be at a disadvantage. Meanwhile, Ji Kai, who had already sensed that the atmosphere was not right, had already sneaked into an empty corner and pretended to be dead. Leaving behind Tsang and Demon, Lung Ruoxue left the living room quietly. The moment Lung Ruoxue left, Azure immediately exploded with anger and pounced towards the evil demon. However, it could only scratch him a few times at most and didn't dare to cause any destruction in the living room. Otherwise, if Nyo got angry, she would ignore it. However, evildoer didn't care about Cold's attack at all. With a light wave of his hand, Cold was sent flying. Then, he patted his sleeves and chased after his wife without a trace. After Tsang was thrown away, Ji Kai came out from the corner and asked the calm Green Vessel curiously, "Young Master Qingju, aren't you worried that your pet has gone missing?" Upon hearing this, Qingju raised his head calmly and said, "That's not my pet, it's Big Sister S." If his sister was not worried, what did he have to worry about? Moreover, that fellow was not someone to be trifled with. After he finished speaking, Green Vessel returned to his room. In the face of Green Vessel's confidence and the information he revealed, Ji Kai understood. No wonder he had always felt that there was something strange going on between the young master of Green Vessel and that talking cat. So this was what happened. Ji Kai, who finally understood their complicated relationship, calmed down. Not long after, Song, who had been thrown away, calmly walked back from outside. The next day, an uninvited cat came for a blind date. Without a doubt, the owner of the female cat was Chu Sr. Looking at the golden female cat lying in front of him with a shy expression, Songyi was speechless for the first time. Why did this so-called blind date make it so annoyed? How should I get rid of this feeling of wanting to scratch someone? Song was furious. He was so angry that he was about to explode. What made it even more unbearable was that the female cat seemed to be very satisfied with it and kept meowing at it. What's the point of calling? Please speak in human language. Azure didn't have any patience for beasts that couldn't be communicated with. It only felt irritable and easily angered. It really wanted to torture people. My house's Tsang seems to be very satisfied with your house's Ahua. Why don't you let Ahua stay and spend more time with Tsang? Your sister, who would be interested in a flower? It did not. It could not understand why a golden kitten was called Ahua. From this, it could be seen that the owner's taste was not very good. Moreover, it was not even the size of a palm, and that Ahua was obviously much bigger than him. It looked like a tiger with a bear's waist. Luan couldn't understand. The damn evildoer did it on purpose, but did that human man not think that it could be a little kitten? Chapter 30-33. You have a child. 6. Did they not feel any guilt at all for letting such small cats breed? The truth proved that Chusun really didn't feel any guilt. He even felt that it was fine to be a little younger now. He could be a son-in-law to cultivate feelings from a young age. What a wonderful thing. The two cats were childhood sweethearts and innocent playmates. He didn't even need to think to know that his idea was the right one. Most importantly, this would make it convenient for him to be in a favorable position, which was exactly what he wanted. Now that he heard the demon asking him to keep Ahua, wouldn't he, as the master, have more opportunities to get close to the person he liked? The roundabout strategy would definitely succeed. Chusun firmly believed in it, so he agreed to the demon's suggestion without thinking. All right, I'll leave Ahua to you then. Then Chusun, who left Ahua behind, continued to sit for a while before leaving reluctantly. The lonely Ahua, from then on, regarded Song as her husband and followed him wherever he went. The little female cat's performance almost made Song go crazy. Every time it was annoyed, it would kick Ahua away, but the indomitable Ahua would always run back and stick to it again. Lung Ruoxue, the demon, Ji Kai, and Green Vessel were all deeply touched by Ahua's determination. This was a cat that was brave in the face of love. Unfortunately, Song wasn't touched. In fact, he only felt annoyed. Fortunately, Ahua was a simple-minded person. On top of that, the food at Lung Ruoxue's place was pretty good. It ate to its heart's content, so even if it was abused, its life was still quite comfortable. Ahua was nourished, but Song's days would not be good. For Ahua's sake, her own girl even warned it to treat the cat better, saying that it was too fierce. After all, the other party was just an ordinary cat, and it could not stand being kicked. Azure felt wronged. After living for so long, this was the first time it had encountered such a thing. It really didn't know how to deal with it. After thinking for a long time, Song made up his mind that he couldn't go on like this, so he asked Ahua to the beach to have a heart-to-heart talk with her. Watching the two cuties leave, Ji Kai, who had been secretly watching, couldn't help but worry. He said to Lung Ruoxue and the demon, "Master, madam, Song wouldn't snap that little kitten in a fit of anger, right?" Ji Kai was really worried. He had been taking care of the cat all this time, so he had developed feelings for it. When Lung Ruoxue heard this, she only looked at Ji Kai calmly and said, "Song wouldn't be so cruel to an ordinary cat." It had to be said that Lung Ruoxue understood Song well. Song had invited Ahua to the beach just to have a good chat. The two kittens walked on the beach, one in front and one behind. Song walked in front, and Ahua followed behind. After a while, Song stopped and turned to look at Ahua. "Ahua, you're a good cat, but we're really not suitable for each other. Meow meow." Ahua couldn't understand human language, but it felt like it had been rejected. It couldn't help but ask why. "Look, we don't even understand each other's language. You don't even know a foreign language," Azure said with the regretful expression. "Meow meow." Ahua called out a few more times as if to say, "Don't be like this, I really like you." "Thanks, I said we don't speak the same language. Please speak human language." Song Yun said angrily. "Was it wrong to like a cat? Why did you treat it like this?" Ahua was very sad. Song was its first love. It didn't want to give up just like that, so it meowed a few more times anxiously as if to say, "My dear, no matter what you're not satisfied with me, it'll change, so please give me a chance. Dream on. There will be no chance between us, and there will be no future. Just give up. Ahua, go and find a real cat." "I'm not." Song understood what Ahua was saying, so he firmly refused. He couldn't let this cat sink deeper. These despicable humans were disrespecting cat rights. A good cat that had its first awakening of love was destroyed in the hands of a group of hateful humans. Song suddenly felt injustice for Ahua. The conversation between the two cats was also heard by Lung Ruoxue and the others. Lung Ruoxue was very surprised by Tsong's performance. She didn't expect Tsong to have such a literary side. "Ahua, you're a good cat, but we're not suitable." These words were too familiar. This was clearly what a scumbag would say when he rejected a woman he was infatuated with. Of course, Tsong definitely wasn't a scumbag, but she suddenly wanted to know where he learned this from. As for the little female cat, her stubbornness surprised Lung Ruoxue. It seemed like they had hurt the heart of an innocent little female cat. Lung Ruoxue felt guilty. In fact, she didn't stop the evil spirit from pairing Tsong because she knew that Tsong couldn't have anything to do with an ordinary cat. However, she didn't expect this little female cat to be so infatuated with him. For a moment, she felt like she was riding a tiger and couldn't stop. After Tsong communicated with the infatuated Ahua, it saw that the other party was still so stubborn. It didn't know what to do. It should know that it had never dealt with such a difficult matter before. Even when it faced the fog, it had never felt such a pain in the ass. But now, an ordinary kitten made it deeply conflicted. After returning to the villa, Tsong didn't give anyone a good face and went upstairs alone. Ahua hesitated and wanted to follow, but he didn't dare. He didn't stop circling the stairs. When Lung Ruoxue saw this, she stepped forward and carried Ahua. She said helplessly, "Ahua, I'll send you home." She couldn't let this little female cat live here anymore. Otherwise, she would feel even more guilty if something irreparable happened. Who knew that Ahua would understand her words and jump out of Lung Ruoxue's arms with a whoosh. It then hid under the sofa in the living room and refused to come out. Seeing this, Lung Ruoxue only felt a deep sense of helplessness. "Call Chu Sen and ask him to take Ahua away." Lung Ruoxue instructed Ji Kai, then pulled the evildoer upstairs to communicate. After receiving Ji Kai's call and asking for the reason, Chu Sen immediately rushed over, but the stubborn Ahua refused to leave with it. It even looked like it was going to leave the house with it. Chu Sen was helpless about this. Ahua was his mother's life. He had borrowed it from his mother, so he really didn't dare to use force on Ahua. Otherwise, if this stubborn little female cat got lost, his mother would break his legs. Seeing that Chu Sen, the owner, couldn't do anything to his cat, Ji Kai didn't know what to say. Just like that, Ahua was left behind again. From that day on, in order to avoid the fate of being taken away, Ahua hid under the sofa all day long. He would only come out for a walk when it was time to eat, and from time to time he would look at Tsong with resentment. Seeing Ahua like this, Lung Ruoxue felt helpless. Chapter 30-34, You Have a Child. 7. Tsong completely ignored Ahua. Anyway, he had already said what he needed to say. It couldn't be helped if the little female cat didn't listen. Gradually, Lung Ruoxue and the rest found a way to get along with Ahua, and even adapted to Ahua's existence. As for Ahua, it seemed that as long as she could see Tsong every day, she would be very satisfied. A month later, a beautiful middle-aged woman came to him. This beautiful middle-aged woman was Chu Sen's mother. She had come with the excuse of taking her cat home, but her main purpose was to see the person her son liked. Ever since the prodigal child at home said that he wanted to use his beloved cat to chase a girl, she had been hoping that the brat would bring back a wife. Who knew that after so long, he had not seen his wife and his beloved cat could not come back. It was understandable that it was not easy to get a wife. After all, good girls were hard to find. Why couldn't he bring back the cute cat? Mama Chu was very worried. Could it be that her beloved cat, which she had raised as her daughter since she was young, no longer belonged to her now that she could not see her wife? With this worry in mind, she personally visited. After seeing Lung Ruoxue, she instantly understood her son's desire for a wife. This girl is so pretty. She was even more beautiful than she had imagined. Since he was young, there were many girls around his son, but compared to the girl in front of him, those girls were like bald chickens without feathers. In an instant, she decided to give her son a helping hand. However, when she heard that the man beside Lung Ruoxue, who was even more devilish than her own son, was her future daughter-in-law's husband, she was dumbfounded, sorrowful, depressed. All sorts of emotions were tangled together. Sob, Mama Chu was sad. Her outstanding son had actually become a mistress and had even entered the family to snatch the wife of the man's real husband. What was this? At that moment, she was so conflicted that she did not know how to face Leng Ruoxue. Although she was envious of her beautiful daughter-in-law, she was not shameless enough to destroy someone's family. Plus, she could not take a Hua away, so after sitting for a while, the depressed Mother Chu found an excuse to leave. After Mama Chu left, Leng Ruoxue, who felt that the situation had become serious again, finally put on a stern face and said to Qin Ju and Song coldly, "Do you two have anything to say?" She had been waiting for these two little guys to confess, but after so long, they didn't say a word about it. Now that Leng Ruoxue had asked, the two of them lowered their heads in unison, refusing to look at Leng Ruoxue. They were feeling guilty. They were indeed the ones who had caused the incident, and they had not expected such serious consequences. "Sister." After a long time, Qin Ju raised his head and looked at Leng Ruoxue pitifully. "Aren't you going to explain the matter clearly?" Leng Ruoxue said angrily. "It was me who became my sister's appearance and got to know him. However, I didn't do anything to that guy that I shouldn't have done. It was completely that guy's wishful thinking." Qin Ju told the truth. Hearing this, the demon revealed an expression of "I knew it." Ji Kai, on the other hand, was even more surprised. He thought to himself, "This little boy is so powerful. He could actually transform into Madam. You really didn't do it? Then why would he do something so strange to me?" Leng Ruoxue was speechless. "Sister, I swear that I didn't do anything. Back then, because I couldn't find you, I changed into your appearance in many spaces. I wanted more people to know you. That way, when those people see you, they will recognize you. I also left a mark on their bodies, so when their emotions fluctuate, I will sense it. That's how I can find you." Qin Ju explained. Thanks, however, his explanation caused Leng Ruoxue and the demon to feel extremely annoyed. "Shuer, don't stop me, I want to teach this bastard a lesson." After he finished speaking, he did not give Leng Ruoxue a chance to stop him. The evildoer lifted green vessel and walked upstairs. Not long after, Qin Ju's cries could be heard from upstairs. Ji Kai couldn't bear to hear this. After all, he was a baby. Master really had the heart. After he told Leng Ruoxue his thoughts, Leng Ruoxue said to Ji Kai calmly, "It's fine. Qin Ju's skin is rough and his flesh is thick. It won't hurt even if I hit him a few times." Ji Kai was silent. A little baby can be considered to have rough skin and thick flesh? However, he didn't dare to ask such a question again. As for Leng Ruoxue, after she finished speaking to Ji Kai, she turned her gaze to her chest and looked at Song. "Song, this was your idea, right? How did you know?" Azure replied in a low voice. "Other than you, Qin Ju shouldn't be able to think of such a bad idea." Leng Ruoxue was very certain. "Girl, why didn't you think of me when something good happened?" Azure felt wronged. "It's not like you to do good things." Leng Ruoxue said calmly. Song was very worried, but Ji Kai didn't dare to listen any further, as he might have heard some secret. He didn't want to be retaliated against later. At this moment, the evildoer who had finished dealing with Green Vessel came down from upstairs and pointed at Song. "Song, come here, I promise I won't beat you up." "No way." Evildoer wanted to cut Song into 8 pieces. Before this, he had already concluded that Green Vessel and Song were behind this without any evidence. Now that Green Vessel had confessed his crime, Song would not be able to escape. Therefore, the next person he had to deal with was Song. However, Song was not as stupid as Green Vessel. It knew that the evil man wanted to take care of it, but it still gave itself to him. It escaped from Leng Ruoxue's embrace. At this moment, Niu was also in a fit of anger, so she might not cover for it. "You still dare to run?" The demon was furious and quickly gave chase. The man and the cat chased each other along the beach. Fortunately, it was late autumn now, so there weren't many people wandering around the beach. Otherwise, Leng Ruoxue would have a headache. When evildoer finally caught up to Tsong, he grabbed the struggling Tsong and took out a sharp knife. After a few strokes, all of Tsong's white fur was gone. Evildoer knew that he couldn't beat Azure up because Azure was too small. It wasn't convenient for him to beat Azure up, so he thought of this punishment. As for the hairless Tsong, without its fluffy fur, it was like a rabbit that had just been born, its body pink and tender. This new image made Azure lose all its old face. Woo, it didn't have the face to see anyone. The heartbroken Tsong entered the room and refused to show his face. The demon's mood was greatly relieved after getting his revenge. In the end, they still needed Qingju to step in. Qingju, who was extremely unwilling, could only turn back into Lung Ruox's appearance and wait for Chu Sen to come. Chapter 30-35. You have a child. 8. 3 days later, her mother and Chu Sen came together. The moment they saw two identical Lung Ruoxus, both mother and son were extremely shocked. The two women in front of them were exactly the same in terms of appearance and temperament. Even their names were just the same pronunciation but different. The mother and son were shocked for a long time before they slowly recovered. Facing this scene, Ji Kai sympathized with the mother and son. Back then, when he saw Qingju transform from a little boy into his wife, he was stunned for a long time. Even now, he still felt like he was dreaming. She's my sister. I only found out about her existence 2 days ago. Lung Ruoxue gave the other parties some time to digest the information before she explained. After hearing Lung Ruox's words, the mother and son were overjoyed. Mama Chu even held Qingju's hand affectionately and stared at him. Chu Sen revealed a rare shyness. He felt embarrassed that he had really gotten the wrong person. After a brief introduction of both parties, Lung Ruoxue pulled the demon away. He had finally solved this big problem for himself, but now, it seemed like Green Vessel was in big trouble. Because the mother and son were extremely satisfied with Qingju, Mama Chu, who was initially afraid that her son would be a mistress, felt her gloomy mood vanish with Qingju's appearance. Chu Sen was not the eldest son, so his mother did not need him to find a woman of equal social status. Everything was based on his son's wishes. It could be said that his mother was very open-minded on this point. Sensing that Chu Sen's mother was really happy, Lung Ruoxue almost wanted to marry Qingju to Chu's senator. What a pity. Qingju was a fake woman. Lung Ruoxue and the demon who had returned to their rooms were enjoying the scene in the living room through the screen. Both of them were in a very good mood. On the other hand, Qingju was so depressed that he was about to cry. Faced with other people's enthusiasm, Qingju was 1,000 times not used to it. Who can help to pull away this creature called mother? Qingju, who was born and raised by the heavens and had no mother, could not understand the love a mother had for her son. His uneasiness was mistaken for shyness by his mother. The more she looked at Qingju, the more satisfied she was with him. She quickly turned from a guest to a host and greeted Qingju, even treating him as her future daughter-in-law. Chu Sen, who was sitting opposite Qingju, lowered his head shyly. His little face blushed as he peeked at his sweetheart from time to time, his heart beating wildly. Mother Chu almost laughed out loud when she saw the embarrassment on the pair's faces. When had her son ever been this shy? It seemed that having someone in her heart was indeed different. Mama Chu looked at the perfect couple and was very satisfied. However, how could the two of them just sit there and not scam him? The anxious Mother Chu thought for a while before she affectionately took Qingju's hand and placed it in her son's hand. Qingju was shocked and quickly retracted his hand. He looked at Chu Sen in horror. Mother Chu was bewildered by this scene. She did not expect the girl in front of her to be so timid and shy. However, this kind of girl was also good. She was so innocent. As for Qingju, who could read minds and knew that the man's parents were quite satisfied with him, when he found out what Mama Chu was thinking, he wanted to look up to the sky and roar. He wasn't shy, okay? After living for so long, his little meaty paws had never been touched by any stinky man. This made him rather worried. So, his innocence. Just like that, there was no return. At this moment, Qingju was extremely regretful. Why did he listen to Song's bad idea and turn into his sister to cast the net? Now she was being pestered. Thanks, yes. He felt so wronged. Song was also involved in this, but that bastard Song was hiding in his room. Thinking about this, Green Vessel was so angry that he shouted, "Song, get out here!" His shout was full of anger and it gave the mother and son a big scare. Both mother and son could not help but widen their eyes and open their mouths. They looked at the beautiful Ching-ju in disbelief. What Mother Chu thought was that this girl was so manly. Chu-sin was obviously shocked. All along, he had thought that his sweetheart was a cute and helpless girl. But now, the little bird had suddenly turned into an eagle. It was no wonder he was shocked. However, Chu-sin knew that if he loved someone, he had to accept everything about her. After the shock, he quickly calmed down and even felt that it was not bad to have a wife with a loud voice. At least he didn't have to coax her all day. As he thought about this, he felt like he had discovered another side of his wife and was suddenly excited. His wife was really cute no matter how he looked at her. Even if he suddenly transformed into an eagle, it was not something he could not bear. Ching-ju, who had read Chu-sen's mind, was completely depressed. It looked like the other party was determined to be a pair with him. What should he do? He was an artifact spirit and had no interest in human love. However, with Chu-sen's interference, he even considered giving him an amnesia pill. Of course, his sister would not allow him to have such thoughts. After all, the memory loss pill was harmful to ordinary humans. Ching-ju, who had been driven mad by Chu-sen, really did not have any good ideas. At this time, he really needed a military advisor. Just as Ching-ju was thinking about this, a pink meatball fell from the sky and landed in his arms. Ching-ju lowered his head to take a look. Wasn't this the shaved Song? Looking at Song Jis' reluctant appearance, he was probably thrown out by that damn demon. It had to be said that Green Vessel was right. The demon heard Green Vessel's voice and forcefully threw Song out of his room. Although a few days had passed, Song's fur had only grown a little. The pink flesh on his body could still be seen clearly. Chu-sen, who had finally recognized Song, couldn't help but point at Song and ask, "Isn't that the white cat? How did you end up like this?" "Meow meow." Song, who didn't dare to speak, glared at Chu-sen and screamed, "Damn it, it's all because of you that I became like this." Chu-sen said he didn't understand, but Ahua did. After meowing a few times, Ahua moved closer to Ching-ju, wanting to get closer to Song. "Ahua, you recognize it? What's wrong?" Mama Chu asked curiously as she picked up Ahua, who had crawled out from under the sofa with great difficulty. She still hadn't seen what that pink, tender meat was. "Meow meow." Ahua proudly called out to Mama Chu, "That's my sweetheart." After that, Ahua struggled to get out of Mama Chu's arms and go to Song. As expected of the person who raised Ahua, she instantly understood what he was doing. At the same time, she felt a sour feeling in her heart. It was really hard to keep a grown girl. Ahua is starting to fall in love. Chapter 30-36. You have a child. 9. After putting Ahua on the ground, Mama Chu stared at Song for a long time with a judgmental gaze. Finding a daughter-in-law was different from marrying off a daughter. The son-in-law had to be carefully selected. After staring at Song for a long time and seeing that Song did not even look at her, Mama Chu decisively concluded that this cat was not a good person for Ahua. Seeing Song, Mama Chu's desire to bring Ahua back deepened. Of course, Song welcomed her thoughts with open arms, and Ching-ju was also eager for her to reject it. That way, he would be free from his sister's mission. However, he was destined to be disappointed because his mother was quite satisfied with him so far. Following that, with the help of his mother, Ching-ju had no choice but to go on a date with Chu Senator. In reality, Ching-ju did not want to go out at all, but his sister was not willing to help him. This made him particularly sad. Chu-sen was an ordinary human, so he couldn't use his divine power on him. Otherwise, his sister would definitely be angry if she found out. Even a mortal couldn't take it. However, it was a good thing that he had Azure to accompany him. Looking at Song, who was also resentful in his arms, Green Vessel was instantly healed. He was not fighting alone. The feeling of having someone to suffer with him was really good. Green Vessel's emotions had calmed down, but Song was speechless as he asked the heavens. What the hell was this? Was it that easy to be a third wheel? Since Green Vessel wanted to use it as a light bulb, Songwoo-Duan decided that it wanted to be a light bulb that did not light up. Therefore, it had to try its best to reduce its sense of existence. The thoughts of the two little fellows could not be hidden from each other, so they both knew it in their hearts and did not expose each other. The two humans and one beast were definitely at peace at the start. As Chu Sen was too excited, he only thought of eating and watching a movie. The place where they ate was a high-end Western restaurant. As soon as the handsome man and beautiful woman entered the restaurant, they naturally attracted the attention of everyone in the restaurant. When it came to ordering, Green Vessel gave Chu Sen full authority. Of course, he did this because he didn't know how to do it. His eyes were dark, and he didn't know what to order. Chu Sen was obviously very familiar with ordering food and was happy that his sweetheart was so dependent on him. So, after ordering 2 steaks, the two of them stared at each other as they waited for the food to be served. Chu Sen looked at Qing-ju affectionately. After Qing-ju glanced at Chu Sen, he turned his gaze elsewhere. When the steak was served, Qing-ju used the knife on the table to pick up the cow's hide and took a big bite. He would even let out a tisk-tisk sound from time to time. Everyone, including Chu Sen, was shocked by his bold action. Table manners were a very important and compulsory course to take in a high-end restaurant. However, Green Vessel had completely ruined the so-called table manners. He was basically eating the steak as if it was a meat skewer. While Qing-ju was enjoying his meal, Chu Sen, who was sitting opposite him, had a conflicted expression on his face. However, he didn't think too much about it. He just felt that his sweetheart might not have received any training in this area, so she didn't know much about table manners. It didn't matter, this was something that could be learned. He was confident that he could turn his sweetheart into a noble lady. With this thought in mind, he endured Qing-ju's rough actions. After the meal, Qing-ju directly put his hand into his mouth to shave his teeth. The people present couldn't accept the fact that such a beautiful woman would do such a vulgar action. This was really too uncultured. How could a true noble lady be like this? Thanks, her unrefined actions despite her beautiful appearance made everyone in the dining room so disappointed that their hearts almost broke. After the meal, Chu Sen grabbed Qing-ju and left the dining room in a panic. After they left the dining room, Qing-ju was very dissatisfied and immediately questioned, "Do you think I've embarrassed you?" No. Chu Sen felt a little guilty. "Then why did you drag me out so quickly? I'm not full yet." Qing-ju said angrily. "Let's go." Hugging Song, Green Vessel urged. Even after eating in one restaurant after another, Qing-ju still did not feel full. Unfortunately, all the restaurants were about to close. He also didn't watch the movie because it was too late. After the depressed Chu Sen sent Qing-ju home, he stood outside Lung Ruox's villa. For the first time, he doubted his own thoughts. He stood in a daze outside the courtyard for a long time before he returned home like a walking corpse. The moment Qing-ju entered the house, he shouted excitedly at Lung Ruoxue, "Sister, I ate a lot of things today, but none of them were as good as the ones you made." Lung Ruoxue, who was sitting on the sofa in the living room, looked at Qing-ju's excited expression and said calmly, "I know you've eaten a lot. And I also know that your reputation of eating so boldly in my face has spread throughout the entire planet Blue. Now, many people know that the second young master of the Chu family has a girlfriend with a black hole in her stomach. Damn, Qing-ju, are you trying to ruin my reputation?" Lung Ruoxue said angrily. "Sister, I just wanted to use my own method to scare that guy away. I didn't do it on purpose." Qing-ju felt wronged. This idea had come from the two mainframes that Song had taken in. In their words, men would not like women like her. Therefore, Qing-ju worked hard to choose the type of woman that men would not like. To quote a famous saying, "What do you see in me? I'll change it." "Forget it, let's just settle this problem first." Lung Ruoxu's words were equivalent to acknowledging Qing-ju's actions. Her reputation would be ruined, but it was better than being pestered by others. With Lung Ruox's approval, Qingju was even more motivated. In the next few days, he went from passive to active. Of course, he mainly asked Chu Sen out for dinner. As for Chu Sen, when he thought of his sweetheart's bold and unrestrained eating manner, he wanted to refuse, but he couldn't resist the temptation of her beauty and agreed. The outcome was naturally too tragic to look at. For the next few days, people treated them to a big meal. Qingju's life was very enjoyable, but Chu Sen did not feel good. Chu Sen's glass heart was shattered by his lover's increasingly rude behavior, but he was still unwilling to give up. He even had the idea of reforming his lover. Qingju was furious when he heard that he had to reform himself. Without another word, Qingju left after giving Chu Sen a good beating. Chu Sen, on the other hand, was seriously injured and had to lie in bed for a few days. While he was recuperating, many friends came to visit Chu Sen and sympathized with his tragic state. There were also people who told him that not everyone could handle a wild girlfriend. Clearly, Chu Sen did not have that ability. And now, Green Vessel's reputation could be said to be quite loud. Chapter 30-37. You Have a Child. 10. After he recovered, Chu Sen continued to try his best to change Qingju. He had liked Qingju for so long, but he couldn't convince himself to give up just like that. After all, it wasn't easy to take back the feelings he had given up, even if it was one-sided. When Qingju saw that this fellow was as persistent as his ahua, he was also furious. He didn't believe that this guy wouldn't be scared away. With the determination to scare the other party away, Qingju increased his bargaining chips and strongly requested Chu Sen to bring him to meet his friends. Chu Sen hesitated for a long time before finally agreeing. After entering Chu Sen's circle, Qingju was like a fish in water. When he didn't eat or do anything stupid, he was definitely a goddess in everyone's eyes. But, in short, after Qingju successfully defeated Chu Sen, he also stimulated his friends one by one. Under the strong request of his friends, Chu Sen did not dare to bring Qingju to meet his acquaintances. The Chu Sen now was becoming more and more famous in the upper-class society. In the past, people knew him because he was the second son of the Chu family, but now, they knew his name because he had a girlfriend who was not presentable. Mama Chu had also heard that things were not going well between her son and her future daughter-in-law. As she had a good impression of Qingju, she specially asked him out to go shopping to see what the problem was. After shopping, Mama Chu completely gave up on Qingju. It was not enough for a woman to just have a pretty face, especially in the upper class. The future daughter-in-law that she had high hopes for clearly did not have that kind of quality, so Mama Chu quickly gave up on Qingju. Chu Sen was still insistent. Seeing this, Qingju was no longer in a hurry. Let's see who can last longer. Lung Ruoxue, on the other hand, was a little worried. Her reputation. Just like that, there was no return. However, in order to get rid of a certain man, her sacrifice was worth it. The Chu family's mother had already given up and forcefully brought Ahua away. Song was also free. Only Qingju was still in deep trouble. However, Lung Ruoxue believed that Qingju would soon see the light. In the days that followed, Chu Sen disappeared for more than 3 months on a business trip. When he saw Qingju again, he tactfully said to him, "Shui, I've been thinking about it for the past 3 months. Maybe we're not suitable for each other, so let's break up. Let's split." Qingju suppressed the excitement in his heart and said loudly. He could not help but complain in his heart. They had never been together, okay? Everything was just the wishful thinking of the guy in front of him. Qingju was so happy to be abandoned that he could not stop smiling. Seeing his sweetheart like this, Chu Sen felt depressed again. Did he do something wrong? Otherwise, wouldn't his ex-sweetheart be heartbroken? But now, where did he look sad at all? Chu Sen, who didn't dare to think further, fled in panic. "Congratulations." Ji Kai stepped forward and said, "Thank you." Qingju replied and then pounced towards Lung Ruoxue. He said agitatedly, "Sister, that man has been settled. He didn't use Shen power, he didn't use any medicine, he gave up on his own. Now sister can forgive me, right? I've never blamed you." Lung Ruoxue laughed evilly. Immediately after, she thought of the reputation that she had lost and felt worried again. As Lung Ruox's weapon spirit, Qingju could naturally read her mind. He could not help but say guiltily, "Sister, I'm sorry. I've caused you trouble. You can't be blamed for this. It's that man's wishful thinking." Lung Ruoxue consoled him. She already knew the ins and outs of the incident with her beloved, so she naturally did not blame Qingju. Thanks the moment Lung Ruoxue saw this, she realized that this little fellow was clearly trying to take advantage of her. "Don't use my face to cause trouble in the future, understand?" he said with a straight face. "I know." Qingju nodded obediently. He did not dare to disobey his sister's words. Now that the matter had finally come to an end, he could play happily again. After Qingju turned back into a baby, their lives slowly returned to peace. Because of what happened before, Green Vessel and Azure were very well behaved for a period of time. However, after the incident subsided a little, the two of them went back to their old ways and caused trouble for the demon. Watching the evildoer bicker with the two little fellows every day, Lung Ruoxue suddenly felt that this kind of life was really not bad. Now, they had nothing to worry about and would go out for a walk when they were bored. One day, Lung Ruoxue suddenly felt unwell and even vomited her breakfast. The demon's little face turned pale in fear. After Ji Kai's reminder, he quickly carried Shui and ran to the hospital. It was only after she rushed to the hospital that Lung Ruoxue had the chance to speak. "Evildoer, I'm fine. I'm just feeling a little unwell." "I know, you vomited." The demon looked at Lung Ruoxue with worry. Green Vessel and Azure, who had followed behind, also looked nervous. At this moment, Ji Kai went to queue up for Lung Ruox's registration. When it was Lung Ruox's turn to go in for an examination, the 3 people and 1 beast waited outside with eager eyes. In reality, Lung Ruoxue really wanted to say that she did not need to come to the hospital. She was a god. She would have known the problem if she used her inner sight, but she didn't even have the chance to say it out loud before she was brought to the hospital by the demon. She didn't want to be examined at first, but when it was her turn, she was directly sent to the consultation room by the demon. His series of actions were so smooth that she didn't even have a chance to refuse. However, she was indeed not feeling well, so she did not reject the doctor's examination. After a round of examination, the doctor asked kindly, "Miss, are you married?" "We're married." Lung Ruoxue was very honest. "Congratulations, miss, you're pregnant." The doctor said, relieved. "There's already one?" Lung Ruoxue was stunned. "What was it?" For a moment, Lung Ruoxue could not react at all. The doctor looked at her silly expression and understood. He explained, "You have a child." Hearing this, Lung Ruoxue stood up with a whoosh. The doctor was so frightened that he quickly held her down and said, "Be careful, the baby is still young, it can't withstand your violent movements." She just wanted to stand up. Did she have to be so careful? Even though Lung Ruoxue had never given birth to a child before, she still had some basic knowledge. Furthermore, she knew her own body well. Not to mention standing up, even if she were to fight with someone at this moment, the child would not have any problems. The descendant of a god was strong. Of course, he couldn't say this in front of the doctor. Otherwise, the doctor would explode. Following that, Lung Ruoxue used her inner sight to check on her child. Knowing that her child was safe and sound, she decided to leave the hospital. However, she still had a checkup to do. The doctor said that she was not allowed to leave no matter what. She even automatically assumed that this new mother was afraid of spending too much money. Chapter 3038, You Have a Child. 11. After patiently explaining the importance of the prenatal examination to Lung Ruoxue could no longer listen to the other party's nagging. She had no choice but to knock the talkative doctor unconscious and run out of the hospital with the demon. Once they were out of the hospital, Lung Ruoxue glared at the evildoer and roared, "I'll never let anyone off if they ever ask me to come to the hospital again." "What's wrong, honey?" Was she bullied by the doctor? "I'm going to find him to settle the score." When the demon heard this, he immediately lost his temper. How dare he bully his wife? Was he tired of living? Come back here. Seeing this, Lung Ruoxue hurriedly pulled back the slightly impulsive evildoer and said, "The doctor didn't bully me. It's just that he's too slow. I can't stand it. Madam, the doctor's dawdling is for your own good. You should listen to the doctor." Ji Kai said with a worried expression. "Bullshit. I'll be a doctor myself. Who has better medical skills than me?" Lung Ruoxue was so angry that she shouted. Ji Kai was silent, and his wife was swearing again. She seemed to be very angry. Ji Kai didn't dare to say anything more. He obediently became the driver and drove Lung Ruoxue, the three people, and the beast home. When they reached home, evildoer, green vessel, and Song Quan surrounded Lung Ruoxue and asked her about her health. It was obvious that they were very concerned about Lung Ruoxue's condition. Lung Ruoxue, who initially did not want to announce this good news, could not help but expose it when she saw their concerned eyes. "I'm pregnant," Lung Ruoxue said, feeling a little embarrassed. "What's there? Don't be afraid, no matter what you have, I'll find a way to cure you," the demon said nervously. "And don't worry, girl. I'll also work hard to cure you, although I don't know how to treat illnesses," Azure said. "And me, sister, don't worry. I'll definitely do a good job in logistics." Qing Ju also expressed that from now on he had to be obedient and not make his sister angry. "I will do my job as the head butler." Seeing that the two people and one beast present had expressed their opinions, Ji Kai naturally did not want to be inferior to them. "What are you guys thinking? I'm not sick. I have a baby." Lung Ruoxue was a little speechless when she saw the "don't worry" expression on the demons and the others' faces. When he heard this, the demon was petrified. Song asked in a daze, "Baby? Whose is it? Sister, will you still love me after we have a baby?" Qing Ju was worried that he would lose favor. Facing such good news, only Ji Kai's reaction could be considered normal. He was overjoyed. His eyes kept wandering around Lung Ruoxue's abdomen. Just as he was engrossed in the sight, he received a heavy punch on his head. Ji Kai held his head and looked up, feeling wronged. He saw his evil master, who had returned to normal, glaring at him and then shouting, "What are you looking at? That's my wife's stomach. You think you can look at it?" Ji Kai didn't know how to explain. As a single man, wasn't it normal for him to be curious? Unfortunately, he was curious about the wrong person. Thanks after dealing with Ji Kai, it was the demon's turn to stare at Lung Ruoxue's stomach. He kept mumbling, "I have a baby. I have a baby. I really didn't expect that I would actually have a child. Wife, you misunderstand me. I mean, we were born in chaos, so our body structure is different from ordinary people. Therefore, I don't know whether I can have a baby or not, but this baby is definitely mine." Seeing that he had said something wrong, the demon quickly explained. "It's mine." Evil Let Song was so angry that the veins on his forehead were throbbing. He picked up Song with both hands and threw him out of the hall out of habit. Not long after, Song Man nonchalantly ran back and continued to provoke, "The baby in Nyo's stomach is mine. It's mine. Can you repeat that?" The demon's eyes were spewing fire, wishing he could burn Song into ashes. Azure wasn't afraid of the demon at all and revealed a proud smile. "It's mine no matter how many times I say it." Lung Ruoxue was speechless. Could these two fellows not be so childish? She really wanted to scratch the wall. Ji Kai, who was watching, suddenly realized that he was unnecessary. He didn't know if his evil master and Song, this bad-tempered cat, would fight later. His life was in danger. "Stop arguing. The child is mine and mine alone. It has nothing to do with you." Lung Ruoxue was infuriated. She then returned to her room in a huff. "Honey." The demon saw that the head of the family was angry and quickly chased after him. "Nyo!" Azure also wanted to give chase, but he was thrown out by Evildoer in a moment of carelessness. This time, Evildoer used 100% of his strength, and Azure directly turned into a shooting star and disappeared without a trace. As he chased Lung Ruoxue back to her room, the evildoer immediately lowered his head and tried to please her. "My dear wife, don't be angry, okay? It's all because of that stupid Azure. I've already taught him a lesson. What about you? Lung Ruoxue raised her brows and asked, "Honey, I'm very obedient." The demon laughed. Lung Ruoxue snorted coldly in its Sundara manner, then turned her head away and ignored evildoer. "Honey, don't ignore me. Let me see the child." The demon was very curious about the new life. He wanted to see what his child looked like now. He was looking forward to it. "I won't let you see." Lung Ruoxue rejected. "But, honey, let me take a look. Just for a moment, all right?" The demon begged. "The children are still young and will be shy, so let's wait until they're older," Lung Ruoxue said after some thought. She could understand the evildoer's excitement to see the child, but she did not want him to know about the child's condition. She had to keep it a secret. Since Lung Ruoxue was determined not to let him see it, the demon naturally could not. That was why he had been staring at his wife with a resentful gaze, hoping to soften her heart. However, Lung Ruoxue had made up her mind. Evildoer was anxious, but he had no other choice. He could only let Lung Ruoxue be willful. After having a child, other than the occasional stubbornness and quibbling, Lung Ruoxue was as usual. However, she was a monster and had developed a rather serious case of being scorched by the pregnant man. He had become sensitive and fragile, like a glass doll that would shatter with a single touch. Even a pregnant woman like Lung Ruoxue had no choice but to accommodate to his devilish emotions. Lung Ruoxue did not know whether to laugh or cry at this fact. Chapter 3039. The Demon's Decision. 1. What made Lung Ruoxue not know whether to laugh or cry was that other than the evildoer's occasional gasp, the adults, the little child, and even Song, who had been kicked away by the evildoer but had come back home on his own, were all more nervous than her, a pregnant woman. Although she had a child, Lung Ruoxue was still very calm, except for being a little surprised when she first heard the news. However, in the eyes of the head butler, Ji Kai, her calmness was rather abnormal. When she had nothing to do, Ji Kai would always sneak a glance at her with a worried look. The evildoer, Green Vessel, and Song would not leave her side. It was rare for evildoer and Azure to quarrel less. The human and the beast seemed to be getting along much more harmoniously, but for some reason, Lung Ruoxue preferred to see the moment when the two of them were in high spirits when they were bickering. How energetic were the two of them when they were like that? But now, their mental energy was highly tense. In reality, Lung Ruoxue really didn't want them to be like this, because she was very clear that she was in a very good state. 3 months later, the diligent head butler reminded Lung Ruoxue that it was time for her prenatal examination. The moment Lung Ruoxue heard this, her face turned green. A prenatal examination? She wasn't an ordinary human being. Why would she need a prenatal examination? "You bastard!" She hated going to the hospital. Under Lung Ruoxue's intense gaze, Ji Kai bravely withstood it. Although at this moment he was so nervous that he was sweating profusely. However, he felt that he was doing this for his wife's good and for the baby's health. Therefore, he had a clear conscience. But why was her heart beating so fast? I'm doing this for your own good," Ji Kai said carefully. After that, he started to talk about the benefits of a prenatal examination to Lung Ruoxue. Evildoer, Green Vessel, and Song were also lectured by the side. After listening to the story, the two people and the cat turned their eyes to Lung Ruoxue. Their meaning was obvious. Go to the prenatal examination. Looking at their expressions, Lung Ruoxue's heart was boiling with anger. At this moment, she could no longer care about the evildoer's fragile emotions. She only smiled faintly and said, "You also think I need a prenatal examination? Schwer, the prenatal examination is for the health of you and the baby." Knowing that his wife was in a bad mood, the evildoer was very careful when he said this. "Sister, go and check it out," Qing Ju said worriedly as well. He could not help but look at Lung Ruoxue's still flat stomach. "Girl, I heard that all the women in this world have to go for a prenatal examination, so let's do as the Romans do." Azure also persuaded. "I said, I'll fight whoever asks me to go to the hospital," Lung Ruoxue reminded him with a dark expression. We're doing this for your own good. The 3 humans and 1 beast said in unison, their faces full of grievance. I know my own situation. The child is doing very well. Lung Ruoxue said with certainty. She had been communicating with her child every day. Madam, you're more than 3 months pregnant, but your belly hasn't grown at all. I'm worried that the child is developing slowly. You'd better go for a checkup. Ji Kai gathered his courage and finished his sentence in one breath. Who knew that just as he finished his sentence, before Lung Ruoxue could even get angry, the demon, Green Vessel, and Azure were the ones who got angry first. You're quite bold to look at my wife's stomach. You dare to look at Big Sister's stomach? You dare to look at Nyo's stomach? The 3 of them said in unison. Ji Kai's face paled in fear. I'm just worried about my wife, Ji Kai explained in a low voice. He was so regretful that his intestines had turned green. Why did he have to be so honest? Thanks. Green Vessel and Azure also nodded in agreement. Ji Kai, who had just escaped death, nodded repeatedly. How could he get rid of this feeling of escaping death? With this, Ji Kai didn't dare to say anything else. At this moment, Lung Ruoxue calmly spoke. Have you ever heard of a god going to a normal human hospital for a prenatal examination? The 3 men and 1 beast shook their heads. The X-ray at the hospital is better than our internal vision? Lung Ruoxue asked again, satisfied. The 3 humans and 1 beast shook their heads again. If that's the case, what's the use of a hospital to me? Not to mention that I won't go to the hospital for a prenatal examination. Even if I'm going to give birth in the future, I won't go to the hospital either. Lung Ruoxue said stubbornly. After hearing this, Evildoer, Green Vessel, and Azure finally reacted. Were they gods? How could they be the same as humans? They really didn't need to follow the model of ordinary humans. What prenatal examination? Go play somewhere else. The hospital would not be able to earn their money. However, Ji Kai knew that his wife didn't want to go to the hospital, but how could he not go to the hospital when giving birth? Ji Kai wanted to say a few words of advice, but before he could say anything, Lung Ruoxue stopped him with a sharp glare. Many words were stuck in his throat. He didn't dare to say them, but he couldn't swallow them down. His face was red from holding back his words. By the time he couldn't take it anymore and coughed violently, Lung Ruoxue had already gone upstairs. Evil Demon, Green Vessel, and Song followed after her, leaving Ji Kai in the living room. He was coughing so hard that his face was red. Ji Kai coughed so hard that tears came out. He felt wronged. He had always been thinking for his wife. Why did no one understand him? The pain of not being understood by others was really unbearable. From that day on, Ji Kai always wanted to say something when he saw the evildoer, but he hesitated, as if he had a stomach full of words to say. However, the evildoer was always with Lung Ruoxue, and he never had the chance to speak to his master alone. This fact made Ji Kai so anxious that he was on fire. However, opportunities were always given to those who were prepared. Therefore, after Ji Kai had planned for a long time, he finally found an opportunity. It was an afternoon, and Lung Ruoxue was taking a nap. As a filial husband, the evildoer went downstairs to prepare something for his wife. After Ji Kai finally caught his evil master, he started to persuade his master with all his might. He told his master that when his wife gave birth, she had to go to the hospital to be safer. The demon was a little embarrassed. It's not that easy to change my wife's decision. Besides, the last time he went to the hospital with his wife, the doctor who examined his wife seemed to be a man. He felt very uncomfortable to let a man help his wife give birth to a child. He could definitely do what other men could do. I don't want to find a male doctor to help my wife have a baby. The evildoer replied honestly after some thought. Master, there are many female doctors in the hospital. Ji Kai was speechless, but he still answered honestly. No, even women. After thinking about it for a while, the demon felt that he couldn't bear it. As long as he thought about the possibility of his wife's body being seen by others, he would go crazy. Ji Kai was speechless. He had discovered that the evildoer master was no less difficult to deal with than the madam. Chapter 30-40, The Genius Decision, 2. I've decided I'm going to give birth to my wife myself. After a while, the demon who had been deep in thought suddenly said. Ji Kai was dumbfounded. He didn't mean it that way. When he finally reacted, Ji Kai quickly said, Master, do you have medical skills? Isn't it just taking in a new student? Is there a need for medical skills? The demon was puzzled. He and Schwerer were both gods. There was no need to learn any medical skills. Ji Kai was speechless for a long time. After a long time, Ji Kai took a deep breath and said, Master, it's said that a woman giving birth is like passing through the gates of hell, so a doctor's medical skills and experience are very important at that moment. If you don't have medical skills, I really don't recommend you to do such a dangerous thing. After all, it concerns Madam's safety. I see. Then he'll go and study medicine. By the way, I know where the door to hell is. When I'm free, he'll go to that place for a stroll. It's not as scary as you think. After the demon finished speaking, he took a glass of milk and some snacks, left the dumbfounded Ji Kai, and went upstairs again. The owner of the gate of hell knows her, and often goes there. Not scary. After the evildoer had left for a long time, these words echoed in Ji Kai's heart. He truly felt that his knowledge was still too shallow. Otherwise, he would not have been so easily intimidated. Ji Kai was worried. He didn't need to think to know who the owner of the white lightning was. Why was that little white cat so unadorable? She even took pleasure in beating him? If he hadn't been to the gates of hell, did that mean he hadn't seen the world? After all, was that place a place that anyone could visit if they wanted to? Only the dead could go there, right? Ji Kai shivered. He felt that he hadn't lived long enough, so he definitely wouldn't want to go there. Whoever wants to go can go. He wasn't going anyway. Ji Kai turned around and went back to his room, depressed. When Lung Ruoxue woke up, the evildoer reported his decision to her. When Lung Ruoxue heard that the demon was going to study medicine so that he could help his wife deliver a baby in the future, she was silent for a moment. Then, facing the demon's gaze that was asking for praise, she nodded and stroked his head. Learn well. Your wife's future children will all depend on you. Don't worry, my dear wife. I'll definitely work hard. The demon promised. He then stared at Lung Ruoxue's stomach for a while before continuing, Schwer, is our child obedient? Did he disturb you? The baby is very obedient, he didn't make a fuss at all. Lung Ruoxue's entire body exuded a motherly glow. In her opinion, the little life in her stomach was much more obedient than the four at home. At least the baby loved her and wouldn't do anything. That's good. If he dares to mess with you, I'll beat him up. The demon clenched his fist and shouted. That's your baby. Lung Ruoxue was speechless. The child was not even born yet, and the father was already saying that he was going to beat him up. What would happen if the child heard this? Then, she quickly rubbed her belly and comforted, Good baby, your silly father is just joking with you. He can't bear to beat you up. I'm willing to beat up anyone who makes my wife suffer. I don't care who he is. The demon did not cooperate with his wife's words at all and said very seriously, Thanks, I want him to hear me so that he won't torment you. The demon said as he pulled Lung Ruoxue's hand and held it in his. All right. However, if you hit our child, my heart will ache. Lung Ruoxue, who was at her wit's end, could only remind him of this. Honey, is the child more important or am I more important? The demon couldn't help asking. You're important. Lung Ruoxue coaxed. Then will you be angry at me because I aborted the child? The demon asked again, worried. What's the matter with this score? If it's the children's fault, I'm sure I won't be angry. Lung Ruoxue replied honestly. Then I'm relieved. As long as he doesn't make any mistakes, I won't do anything. But once he does, I'll teach him a good lesson. The demon decided. Lung Ruoxue helplessly nodded. At this moment, the demon touched Lung Ruoxue's stomach and asked, Wifey, will you not love me as much as you used to after we give birth? Of course I won't. Lung Ruoxue promised. But Song said that after giving birth, your mind won't be on me. If such a thing really happens, I don't mind sending my child away. The demon said with a hint of worry. That kind of thing will never happen. In my heart, you will always be the most important. Hearing this, Lung Ruoxue immediately said, but in her heart, she was so angry at Song's words that she gritted her teeth. She had thought that the two of them had temporarily stopped fighting. So they had gone underground? The more Lung Ruoxue thought about it, the angrier she got. However, she didn't show it on her face. She continued coaxing the evildoer for a while more before she finally managed to coax this insecure fellow into bursting with joy. After that, Lung Ruoxue found Song and instructed him to bring grandfather and the rest to planet Indigo. Just like that, Azure, who didn't know the truth, was sent out. On the other side, the demon was ready to officially study medicine. Since he wanted to study medicine, he had to find a school. For this reason, the evildoer gave the task of finding a school to Ji Kai. Ji Kai didn't know what to do when he received this annoying task. After all, it was really not easy for a stowaway without any identification to go to school. Ji Kai had been struggling for a few days and inadvertently revealed his thoughts to Qingju. When Qingju heard this, he smiled and said, "It's easy to get identification. Just find them." The they that green vessel was referring to were the two mainframe of the starfields that were not far away, doing nothing. Ever since these two little guys were brought back by Blue, they had been following them. Blue had even changed their bodies to become two palm-sized rabbits. One was gray, the other black. The two rabbit-shaped mainframe were having a hard time with their new bodies. As the mainframe, the two of them naturally had high IQs, so they were quite clear that rabbits were mostly carnivorous. However, in Song's words, they were mini pet rabbits. If they took it out, they would definitely be able to charm a large number of girls. With the intention of charming a large number of girls, the two of them put up with their new image. However, ever since they had their new bodies, the two rabbits had not seen many pretty girls. The only one they had seen was Lung Ruoxue, who was not to be trifled with. Towards pretty girls, they did not dare to have any thoughts about her. Chapter 3041, The Demon's Decision, 3. In this way, the two rabbits were so idle that they were about to grow green fur. The two rabbits with sharp ears immediately perked up their little ears to listen carefully when they heard that there was a job. Ji Kai still didn't know the identity of these two rabbits. However, he wasn't too surprised by their sudden appearance, because they were brought back by the little white cat. But now that Qingju reminded him to ask for help from these two rabbits, he couldn't help but take a few more glances at the rabbits that were already quite fat. It could be used as a dish. Ji Kai was already very picky about the dishes that went with wine, but these two rabbits were barely qualified. It should be good to nourish Madame's body. Just as Ji Kai's thoughts were running wild, Qingju's small meaty claw hit Ji Kai's head and he shouted, "You bastard! They are not for you to eat. Don't you need proof of identity? Just find the two of them. They're two rabbits." Ji Kai couldn't help but whisper. He is on the outside, but not on the inside. Besides, even if they're just two pet rabbits now, they're still more useful than you. Qingju said with a look of disdain. These words hurt Ji Kai's fragile heart. Could it be that he was not even as good as two rabbits? Idiot! After cursing, it closed its mouth again and put on a noble and cold appearance. Ji Kai was frightened by the rabbit that suddenly spoke. But was it another talking beastie? How could this be? No wonder he was always looked down upon. It seemed that he was really worse than two rabbits? Ji Kai was very sad. Qingju couldn't stand it anymore and finally said something fair. You don't have to be too sad. These two rabbits are the mainframe. You naturally can't compare to them in certain aspects. The ability he was referring to was naturally hacking into Planet Indigo's network. In reality, without Lung Ruoxue and the rest knowing, the two bored rabbits had already done that. However, they were afraid of being scolded, so they didn't dare to report this. Mainframe? Ji Kai was stunned. Did he mean what he was thinking? Yes. Green Vessel nodded and explained, one of them was brought here by Tsang and I from the vast galaxy. The other one is the mainframe of the Parliament Alliance. Ji Kai was silent. All right. After the three of them, The little boy and the little white cat had added another layer of frost to the Haoyuan star field and the Congress Alliance. Ji Kai observed 3 minutes of silence for the Congress Alliance before nodding. If it's them, then there shouldn't be a problem with our identification. The mainframe. His original job was to monitor the network, which was even more powerful than the so-called hackers. How could Ji Kai not be at ease? A day later, the 2 rabbits who had received the mission had confirmed the identities of Leng Ruoxue and the others. From kindergarten all the way to high school, their ages had also been changed. Leng Ruoxue and the demon were both 20 years old, while Ji Kai was a 35-year-old uncle. 4 men, 35 years old was the golden age of men, so Ji Kai was very proud. Things would be much easier with an identity. Ji Kai went out to run to school. Thanks, how is it? Did you find the school? The demon asked. No, medical schools have very strict requirements for their students' qualifications. Many schools refuse to accept their owners when they hear that they haven't passed the college entrance examination. Ji Kai said honestly, College entrance exam? What's that? The evildoer who had never gone to school expressed that he didn't understand. College entrance exam. It's a way for ordinary people to study. After passing the college entrance examination and being admitted to a university, they can then study the university's courses. Leng Ruoxue explained with a smile. Is there any university that I can go to without the college entrance examination? The demon asked gloomily. What college entrance exam? It sounded so difficult. There are, but you won't be able to learn anything useful in that kind of university. So, if you want to study medicine well, my dear husband, you still have to take the college entrance examination. Leng Ruoxue laughed evilly. To be honest, she didn't want the evildoer to study medicine so hard. After all, they were gods, and giving birth was definitely different from ordinary people. However, this was the evildoer's kind intention, and she couldn't reject it. Thus, she could only hope that the evildoer would take the initiative to give up. But the little devil's temper came up. I want to take the college entrance exam. The demons will said firmly. Then participate. Leng Ruoxue was at her wit's end. After deciding to take the college entrance examination, the first thing the demon had to do was to learn about the knowledge of planet Indigo. Even though Leng Ruoxue had taken the college entrance exam in her previous life, she was not very familiar with planet Indigo's knowledge. As such, she had no way of helping the demon. After some thought, she ordered Ji Kai to hire a tutor for the evildoer. Ji Kai quickly settled this matter. The tutor he hired was a young man in his early 20s. The moment he saw Leng Ruoxue and the evildoer, the young man was in a daze for a long time. When he regained his senses, his little face was still red and he did not know where to put his hands and feet. The young man, who originally wanted to work while studying, didn't expect his client to be so beautiful. Wasn't this a scam? Facing such a monstrous student, who could still concentrate on teaching? The young man was very worried. The salary of this job was very high, and he didn't want to lose it because of his distraction. After a long period of silence, the young man decided to start the class. When he saw Leng Ruoxue take out a set of elementary school textbooks, the young man was in a mess. What was the meaning of this? The young man didn't understand. Let's start from elementary school. Leng Ruoxue explained with a faint smile. Okay. The young man was depressed for a moment, but he agreed. He completely treated this as a test from the host. The young man was also very serious when he taught. Basically, he only had to teach them once before Leng Ruoxue and the demon who were learning with him understood. In reality, Leng Ruoxue was the only one who truly understood. As for the demon, he had completely imprinted the contents of the books into his mind. When he needed them, he would flip through them and use them. When he didn't need them, he would just store them in the depths of his mind. It had to be said that his learning method was quite suitable for this kind of intensive learning. The reason why Leng Ruoxue followed him was because she was afraid that the demon would not understand something and she could be of help when the time came. But now that the demon had taken a shortcut, she naturally didn't need to study seriously anymore. However, she still chose to listen. A month later, The evildoer and Lung Ruoxue had completed all the courses from elementary school to high school. The young man was quite surprised at the learning speed of this pair of monsters. They were real geniuses. In comparison, those self-proclaimed geniuses in their school were nothing. Knowing that the evildoer was going to take the college entrance examination and study medicine, the young man strongly recommended the evildoer to apply for their school and make it clear that they were the top school on planet Indigo, with the best campus environment and teachers. Chapter 3042, The Demon's Decision. 4. After hearing this, the demon was a little tempted. However, he didn't immediately agree. He only said, "I need to discuss this with my wife." Hearing the demon's words, the young man's mouth couldn't help but twitch. It was hard for him to imagine that the beautiful man and woman in front of him, who were not even 20 years old, were already husband and wife. The man still kept talking about his wife all day long, as if he was afraid that others would not know that he was afraid of his wife. Although he had heard it a lot and should have calmed down, every time he heard the demonic man talk about his wife, he felt very conflicted. He was tied up tightly just like that. The point was that the person in jail didn't struggle at all and even enjoyed being tied up by a woman. The young man had no experience in love, so he naturally could not understand the mood of a demon who respected his wife. However, this matter was obviously not something that he could ask about as a tutor, so he quickly felt at ease. A few months before the college entrance exam, Ji Kai had to help his master register. At this moment, Lung Ruoxue ordered Ji Kai to register her as well. She was also taking the college entrance examination. When Ji Kai heard this, he was stunned for a long time. "Madam, although your stomach isn't obvious yet, you'll be old and in labor by the time you take the college entrance examination. How can you take the college entrance examination in that state?" Ji Kai didn't dare to imagine how lively it would be if the child was born on the exam grounds. Knowing what Ji Kai was thinking, Lung Ruoxue told him the truth. "Don't worry, I can't give birth so quickly." What did he mean by can't give birth so soon? Could he endure through the college entrance examination or? When he thought of this, Ji Kai suddenly woke up. That's not right. If Master wanted to study medicine, he had to take the college entrance examination first. But after the college entrance examination, he would have a holiday and school would start again. This would take several months. If that was the case, it would definitely be too late for Master to learn medicine and help Madam deliver a baby. It should be known that a woman would be pregnant for 10 months, and Madam was now 6 months old. She would probably give birth before the day of the college entrance examination, and by then, Master's school had not started yet. Thinking about this, Ji Kai suddenly didn't know what the meaning of his master's hard work and college entrance exams was. "I told you I can't give birth so quickly," Lung Ruoxue repeated before Ji Kai could voice his thoughts. "Yeah, my child won't be out so soon." The demon also nodded. Ji Kai didn't understand, but since his master and his wife said so, what else could he say? He could only follow Madam's instructions. Not long after reporting to his master and Madam, Song brought Lung Qingtian and the others to planet Netherblue. Seeing Lung Ruoxue, who they had not seen for a long time, everyone naturally exchanged some pleasantries. When Lung Qingtian and Lung Ruhen found out that one of them was going to be a great-grandfather and the other was going to be an uncle, they were overjoyed. Ever since they had arrived on the Netherblue planet, Lung Ruoxue had many protectors by her side, causing the demon to find it extremely difficult to even take a single step closer to Shui. In the words of Lung Qingtian and the others, Shui was pregnant now, so she had to be careful in everything. Of course, the person she had to be especially careful of was naturally a demon. The reason why they treated evildoer this way, other than punishing him for kidnapping Shui and leaving without saying goodbye, was also because Tsang had snitched on him. When Lung Qingtian and the others heard this, they were shocked. From then on, the days of suffering for the evildoers officially began. He wanted to hug his wife, but it was harder than ascending to the heavens to get close to her. This also caused him to hang his head all day long. His face was frighteningly dark, and cold currents were flowing around him. For a moment, The air pressure in the entire villa was comparable to that of the South Pole. Thanks as the head butler, Ji Kai sympathized with his poor master. But he didn't expect Madame's maiden family to be so fierce. Even the master couldn't do anything about it, so he, a little servant, naturally didn't dare to be rash. As such, Ji Kai could only support and sympathize with his master in his heart. As for Leng Ruoxue, after being protected by her grandfather and the others, she could only feel helpless. In fact, she wasn't that fragile, okay? Of course, her heart ached even more for the evildoer who looked at her with resentful eyes every day. After a long conversation with his grandfather and the others, Leng Qingtian and the others finally gave in and sighed. A grown girl can't be kept in the family. This is just how far. She felt heartache for her man. Leng Qingtian and the others felt sour in their hearts, but they still allowed the evildoer to get close to Shuer. Of course, they also gave him a warning. The demon naturally agreed, and then hugged his wife tightly like a pitiful homeless child, expressing his feelings. Leng Ruoxue comforted him and finally managed to coax the evildoer into a smile. Ever since her grandfather and the others arrived, the house had suddenly become lively. Back then, when Ji Kai saw so many people and beasts, he was not used to it. In particular, there were many precious animals among the beasts, and all of them could speak the human language. This simply made his eyes unable to take enough of them. However, the spirit beasts did not have a good attitude towards Ji Kai, because in their hearts, Ji Kai was a damned evildoer, and this damned evildoer had once abducted their master, so he was their enemy. The servants of their enemies were naturally their enemies. With this reasoning, it would not be so easy for Ji Kai to please them. However, those beasts were all the size of a palm, and many of them were fluffy. They looked too cute, so Ji Kai couldn't help but stick his warm face to their cold butts. After a long time, he really made some progress. At the very least, the spirit beasts no longer rejected Ji Kai as much as they had before. Just like that, Ji Kai spent his days cooking. After cooking more, Ji Kai's cooking skills had improved by leaps and bounds, and his relationship with the beasts had also improved rapidly while feeding them. It couldn't be helped, as Ji Kai was now their nanny. Time passed quickly. Soon, the day of the college entrance examination arrived. To Ji Kai's dismay, his wife's stomach was still normal even after a few months. Ji Kai was deeply worried about this fact. Was Madame pregnant or not? Ji Kai didn't dare to ask. Whenever he had the chance, he would glance at his wife's stomach and then quickly look away to avoid being discovered. In fact, how could his little trick escape the eyes of all the people and beasts? However, none of them exposed Ji Kai. After sending Leng Ruoxue and the evildoer into the exam hall, Bai Su and Feng Zhan took the initiative to chat with Ji Kai to distract him from his anxiety. While they were chatting, Ji Kai unintentionally revealed his worries, instantly causing Feng Zhan and Bai Su to laugh out loud. After laughing enough, Feng Zhan answered, "You're thinking too much. Master definitely has a baby. It's just that our god's baby won't be born so soon. Like me, I stayed in the egg for at least 1,000 years before I came out. This stinky cat is the same." Chapter 3043, The Demon's Decision, 5 Ugh. Looking at the fiery red macaw that Feng Zhan had transformed into and the stinky cat that he was talking about, Ji Kai was a little confused. 1,000 years? If that was the case, would he still have a chance to see Little Master? I'm afraid he can't even live for 1,000 years? Ji Kai was very sad. After all, he had been looking forward to seeing his Little Master. No matter what, he had to see her. Otherwise, he would not be able to die in peace. Calm down. Master's baby shouldn't take that long. It will definitely be born within 100 years. Sensing Ji Kai's low mood, Feng Zhan consoled him with a smile. Hearing this, Ji Kai couldn't help but glance at Feng Zhan. He thought to himself, is this a consolation? 100 years isn't a short time, is it? Of course, it was much shorter than 1,000 years. I hope he has the chance to see Little Master come into being. After understanding that his future Little Master was different from the rest, Ji Kai forced himself to calm down. He was not prepared to stare at Lung Ruox's stomach and sigh anymore. After 3 days of examinations, Lung Ruoxue and the demon acted as if nothing had happened. They did not care about the results at all. However, Lung Qingtian and the others, who had no idea what the college entrance examination was, were rather interested in the college entrance examination that Lung Ruoxue and the demon were participating in. After some understanding, everyone immediately made the decision to take the college entrance examination. Of course, they could only participate in next year's. The 2-rabbit mainframe helped everyone to get their identification. Ji Kai then invited the young man from before. These people in front of him, any one of them could be a male god-level school hunk. Was it really good for such a group of people to enter university? The young man could already foresee the reaction of the group of infatuated girls on campus when they saw this fat meat. After giving everyone a sympathetic look, the young man began to teach seriously without batting an eyelid. Although they were baffled by the young man's gaze, no one thought too much about it. They took a shortcut in their studies like a demon. In less than a month, the young man lost his job again. However, to the young man he was quite proud, because the results of the college entrance examination were already out. He had taught a top scorer and second place. Needless to say, the college entrance examination's top scorer was naturally Lung Ruoxue, while Demon's results placed him in second place among all the college entrance examination candidates on planet Indigo. As expected, the two of them became the young man's schoolmates. When it came to choosing her major, Lung Ruoxue had initially wanted to choose the law. However, under the gaze of those devilish black eyes, she had chosen the medicine as well. Lung Ruoxue could only comfort herself that she had only learned medicine because she was afraid that someone would take advantage of her absence to seduce her man. The demon didn't care why his wife studied medicine. He was very happy to be able to go in and out with his wife every day. He didn't have to worry about people who were blind to provoke his wife. Their university was called Netherblue University. It was the best university on planet Netherblue, and the students who graduated would be elites in their respective fields. Of course, there were many children of aristocratic families among the students, and these children were not idiots. They all got in with their own results. Entering a university like this meant that everyone had to study hard. However, Lung Ruoxue was definitely not on the list of people who would study hard. Thanks on the first day of school, the two of them went to report together. Before they even entered the school, their extraordinary looks caused a huge commotion. Fortunately, they had the help of their former tutor, this old bird. That was why Lung Ruoxue and the demon did not get drowned in the crowd. Under the cover of the young man, Lung Ruoxue and the demon finally arrived at the medical school. Every year, the School of Medicine's marks were the highest in Netherblue University. Even though there were many students who applied, the School of Medicine's marks were always extremely high every time they recruited new students. This year, the marks were simply heaven-defying, so the only new students in the School of Medicine this year were Lung Ruoxue and Demon. Of course, Lung Ruoxue was still unaware of this situation. The senior who had accepted the mission to welcome them outside the medical school had not told them about this either. Once she entered the medical school campus, Lung Ruoxue could smell the strong smell of disinfectant. It was similar to the smell in the hospital. At this moment, she regretted studying medicine. She didn't like the smell. However, Lung Ruoxue also knew that retreating now would not work. She still had to accompany the evildoer. After finishing the admission procedures, the two of them went home. 3 days later, classes officially began. When Lung Ruoxue and the demon arrived at the classroom according to the timetable given to them, they saw that the huge classroom was empty. There was not a single student in sight. They immediately realized that they had arrived early. It wasn't until an old professor in his 70s arrived that Lung Ruoxue realized that something was amiss. It was only the two of them. Seeing that the old professor was about to start his class, she couldn't help but ask, "Professor, I don't think all the students have arrived yet. Who said that not everyone is here? You two are the only students in this batch." The old professor said affably. This year's top and second place were both his students, so he was in a very good mood. But when Lung Ruoxue heard this terrifying news, she was in a bad mood. According to her thoughts, if there were more students, she could slack off, but now there were only 2 of them. She was afraid that even if she took a nap in class, the professor would find out. This feeling was really too sad. As if he could see through Lung Ruoxue's thoughts of slacking off, the old professor, whose beard had turned a little white, smiled even more warmly. Our medical department's teaching style is a little different from other departments. It's more dependent on students' self-exploration and internship. So, if you can fully understand what's in the books, I don't care what you do in my class. However, if you can't answer a question of mine, then you'll have to face my monstrous anger. Tremble! The children! The old professor suddenly said in an impassioned tone. At this moment, Lung Ruoxue was even more suspicious of her choice. Unfortunately, in the old professor's eyes, the 2 pieces of fat meat in front of him had already boarded the pirate ship, and it was too late for him to regret. The old professor was pleased with himself and started his lecture. After listening for a while, the demon said impatiently, "Professor, can we not talk about this? I'm not interested in these things." The old professor's first lesson was about basic medical knowledge. For a demon who only wanted to help his wife deliver, it was completely useless, so he didn't have the patience to continue listening. When the old professor heard the demon's words, he immediately blew his beard and glared, "Then what are you interested in?" Of course, he was just asking casually. "I want to learn how to give birth." The demon shouted, "You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.